Hello, everyone. This is Matt from IndieEye, and you are listening to a bonus episode of IndieEye Film Awards. This is a bad review special. Now, we've never done this before, but an opportunity came up to discuss a certain situation with our fellow IndieEye listeners, fellow filmmakers, people who are submitting films to film festivals, or you are requesting reviews from websites. And at IndieEye, we offer written reviews for your projects. We do outsource for those reviews with somebody we trust, who you know as DJ Ford. Well, DJ wrote a review for a project that was submitted in July of 2022. The review was fairly negative about this particular short film. And the creators of the short film asked that the review be removed. But there was an email exchange between myself and the filmmakers, and I thought this is a good opportunity to share with you all what not to do when you receive negative feedback. And more importantly, how to embrace people's opinions that you differ with or that are negative about your projects. Now, I did bring along Dante Aubain, a fellow director, who you may have heard. He's directed The Alpines, he directed the short film Polaroid. Both were big IndieEye winners, and we got to chatting quite a bit. This is a long bonus episode. Authorities believe alcohol was involved. But we wanted to really get into this topic, so much so that Dante and I, in this episode, are both sharing negative reviews from our own films and talking about the impact of that and how we handled those things. And there's also a huge IndieEye behind-the-scenes reveal that we're going to drop on you all. So settle in and listen to a couple of directors dish about the behind-the-scenes dirt. We have changed the names to protect the innocent, and I hope there are little nuggets in this discussion that you can all apply where you find necessary to your own experience submitting films and requesting reviews and reacting to negative feedback.
You are now listening to the IndieEye Film Awards podcast.
Welcome to IndieEye Film Awards. This is a bad review special episode where I am here with award-winning filmmaker Dante Aubain. And, my name is Matt. I'm usually here with Dre. You would hear Matt and Dre for the IndieEye Film Awards episodes every month. But we're doing this special episode because we've got into a little situation that I thought would be great to share with other indie filmmakers, just to kind of give you an example of what not to do, kind of give you some advice on how to handle some things, and just to, quite frankly, be candid about our own projects so that we can be a shining example of how indie filmmakers should take negative reviews, or any negativity, really. So, once again, I am Matt. I'm here with Dante. Dante, how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. It's been a good summer. It's a fabulous, beautiful, sunny day. I think I live in a basement, so I don't know for sure, but I'm feeling good. How are you doing?
Well, I'm great. I think we're both probably feeling pretty good because we're drinking for this episode. And we are 3,000 miles apart, but I'm on my second beer. How about you?
I had a long night, so I'm on number 5. It's a little later here. I mean, I can judge you. It's just past noon for you. It's 3:00 here. So,
yeah, well, I figured to get through this episode, we would probably need a few cold ones
100%.
to just kind of get through it. And so let me tell everyone what's going on. This is August, of course, but in our last month, July of 2022, we had a submission to IndieEye Film Awards that requested a written review. Now, the creators of said film which we will refer to as Toolbox rather than give the name of the film. I don't want to give the names. And they may be totally cool with it. I don't know, but I just don't feel like,
I don't think
you know, I don't want to talk about this experience with them, you know, without their permission. So we're going to call this movie Toolbox. They did not appreciate the less than stellar review given by IndieEye Film Awards film reviewer DJ Ford. So when you submit for a written review for IndieEye, which we have available, you can submit your film for that. We outsource that to DJ Ford. And the reason why I do that is, one, it helps with the workload of IndieEye, but most importantly, DJ provides a different opinion than I would give, which I may give on the podcast. And so I feel when people pay for this extra review, not only do they get a written review that is published on the website that they can quote or use elsewhere, but at least they're getting another opinion. So they might get two opinions out of IndieEye regarding their film. And we try to be unique. We try to stand out from other film festivals by providing the feedback on podcasts, but also offering these written reviews. So the makers of Toolbox, which is what we're calling the film, it's not called Toolbox, but that's what we're calling it, submitted for Best Horror and for a written review. Now, DJ watched the movie. He wrote a review, clearly spoke his opinion, and the makers of Toolbox did not appreciate the negative review. They did request to have it removed from the website, which is fine. I'll certainly honor that for anybody. I wouldn't agree with it as a filmmaker. I wouldn't want my negative review removed. I don't think I would ask for that, but I understand that that's how they felt, and I totally respect that. Now, we selected DJ Ford to be our outsource for written reviews for this specific responsibility because of his love of movies. He has indie filmmaking experience, and he has a wide range of taste, and he's a very honest individual who appreciates the hard work that goes into filmmaking. Now, Dante, can you tell us a little more about DJ Ford?
Sure. I've had the pleasure of speaking with DJ myself quite a few times every morning when I look at myself in the mirror. Hi, I'm DJ Ford. My name is Dante Aubain. We chose to use a pseudonym because, is pseudonym the right term? I think it is, right? We chose a fake name.
Sure.
We chose to do that because I've submitted to IndieEye a few times in the past, and we don't want anything to appear biased, even though it very much is not. I assure you it isn't. I did not write my own reviews for the films that I've requested reviews for in the past. Someone else did write those.
Right.
I also don't ever reference my own work, especially not that work that was submitted through IndieEye in comparison to any of my reviews, because again, it's biased, and it's a very fair process. I assure you, I watch every time someone submits for a review. I watch your film very, very often. I watch it more than once because I want to watch it first for the watch. I want to enjoy it, and then I'll give it another watch before I dive into the review. I want to really make sure that I'm giving you a fair shake and also an honest opinion. You know, you're not, and this is, I think, a common misconception when, as an indie filmmaker, and I thought this way back when, I was very wrong. If you're paying for a review, you know, maybe you think that means that you're paying for someone to like your movie. You're not. That would be a bribe. That would be saying, right, hey, I'm going to give you money. Tell people you love my movie, even if it's dog shit. And I've made dog shit films before. Matt, I'm sure you have too. That's just part
Absolutely.
Of growing. I have no shame in saying I have made dog shit. And so, you know, when you're submitting for a review, you're paying for a service. You're paying for my time in this case to sit down and watch your short film, watch your feature not once, almost always twice, sometimes even a third time, if I want to really, really make sure that I'm giving you something to work with. Because it's not only am I giving you a written review for you, it's not feedback. I mean, it is, but it's not. If you request feedback from a festival or whatever, it's different. It's not really necessarily, it's not built for a read for a casual viewer. It's for you as a filmmaker. So, it's not clean, it's not touched up, and sometimes it's really harsh. I know that I submitted a short film that was mostly loved in the festival circuit, but I had submitted it to a pretty reputable short film website, hoping to get on there. But I'm like, you know what? Let me pay the $80 for feedback, because even if I don't get in, it's a website I would love to be on at some point in my career, especially if I make more short films. Suffice it to say, my film did not get picked up for this website, and the feedback was brutal. It was a good time. It was fun reading it. I learned a lot. But man, like for a minute, I'm like, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I went and like had a beer. I think I read it at 9 a.m. and I'm like, I'm drinking with breakfast while I'm reading this. But it was, despite some of the worst things, I wish I wish I could find that particular email of feedback. I could dive in and look for it in a little bit. But it was like, I'm not being shy. It was awful. And I know we're talking about a particular review for another short film that I had reviewed back in July that we're calling Toolbox. And it wasn't, I was not kind. I was honest. Again, you're paying for honesty. I was also critical. I didn't throw out, hey, I hate this movie, don't watch it, period, end of story. It was a very, at least in my mind, I was very honest. I was very critical. I gave a lot of what I would think were great notes. At one point, I did even say, because I was very unsure, and I like to know this going in, I was watching this film, and it felt like I was watching a first cut, like a very rough assembly cut. And if that's the case, and I even wrote this, if that's what I'm watching, take a little bit of this with more of a grain of salt, because you're still working on it. But as a finished product, I watched this twice and didn't want to, and still did, because I'm committed to being as honest and genuine as I can be while I write these reviews. I'm not. You're paying for a service. You're getting it.
Right.
It was not enjoyable. It was not life that I'm ever going to get back. But I did it, and I was hoping that they would get something out of it, because I got a lot out of the harsh feedback that I've been given in the past. I think it's what has made me, I'm not Spielberg. I'm not, I promise. But I've grown.
I'll take your word for it.
I've grown a lot since, high school and college, and even, over the last couple of years. I make something and then it either does well or it doesn't do well, but you're not going to please everybody either way, but you learn something new every time. And that's all what I was hoping for, because I loved the concept. I don't know how much you want me to talk about what the actual concept was.
We'll get into that a little more. I just like the purpose of this moment is so that people understand that Dante Aubain is DJ Ford, our reviewer. And I guess going forward, we'll just put Dante Aubain on your reviews. So, but we're trying to be incredibly transparent for the listeners. And I thought, because of the exchange I ended up having with the filmmakers responsible for Toolbox, I thought it would be a great example for other filmmakers to hear how someone might react and how maybe you shouldn't react when dealing with this type of negativity. And there was just things I wanted to say, and I thought, who more perfect to speak with than you, who did the actual review? And since the review is not available, I will end up reading that review. I'm going to read the email exchange I had with the individual who submitted. And then a little later on in the podcast, we will also read negative reviews about our indie films, and we will talk about our experience and what we learned when we face negativity or things don't quite go right or whatever. But I want to take this opportunity to talk about Calvin T. Shepard, who submitted Safe House 1618 to IndieEye Film Awards. He was a big winner with us. You watched it. I think you did a review for Safe House 1618. You loved the film.
I would really love to take a quick moment and give Calvin a lot of credit. So this is also a pretty funny story. When I watched Safe House, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I know you did just say I loved the film. I didn't love it, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much that I did write this in the review, and it's very true. He's got a fan for life. Honestly, I want to work with him at some point. I believe he's a Colorado filmmaker right now. I'm a Jersey filmmaker, so there's a bit of a gap there. But if we ever had the chance to cross paths, I genuinely would love a shot at working with him and just seeing how he's progressed, even from Safe House, but also just to see how he works, because it was, despite its shortcomings, and I've got the review pulled up here. It was a good film. It was definitely watchable. It's available now, actually. I believe it's streaming on Amazon. Don't quote me if I'm wrong. But it's on a good amount of streaming services. And if you haven't had a chance to check out Safe House 1618, go for it. It's an amazing watch. Not a perfect film, but a really a fun watch. And so after I had written this review, because again, they are honest, and I wrote right at the bottom of the review, at the end of the day, Calvin T. Shepard and Jasmine Day truly have a new fan for life. So I followed him on Instagram before the podcast came out, because I meant it. I looked him up. I wanted to check out some of his other work, and I sent him a follow request, and then the review posts, the podcast posts, and I fucked up. I mean, I guess it's not a fuck up, but he reached out. He's like, can I ask you an honest question? Are you DJ Ford? Because the timing was just like, it was bad timing. I should have at least waited until after the podcast came out. But I didn't lie. I'm like, you got me.
Yeah, I mean, we're not trying to lie to anybody. So no,
it's
it's totally fine.
It's because there's a perceived bias in almost everything that anyone does, and we didn't want to encounter that issue. I also don't want people hitting me up if I hate your movie and being like, bro, fuck you. Which if they do, hey, now check out your reviews. If my name is on it and it wasn't a good one, send me a fuck you. I'll say thank you. Have a nice day. Well, or say thank you for the honest feedback. I appreciate it. And then I'd love to check out more of your work. Hell, I'll watch more of your work anyway, because I'm an indie filmmaker just like you, and I'm an imperfect one. Who is, I know we're talking about this later, but just for some added inspiration here, I've got all of the negative Alpines reviews. That was my big feature, just queued up and staring me in the face. Right now, I'm looking at a 0.5 star by a Josh on Letterboxd. Literal steaming pile of dog shit. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate it.
Well, and looking at our bad reviews or whatever was inspired by Calvin Shepard, because and if you can follow him on Instagram at Calvin T. Shepard Films, and I saved a post that he made last week or so, and he posted a screenshot of a couple of bad reviews about Safe House 1618. I'm going to read one of them here
with a fun little jingle too. I got a good kick out of that post.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's refreshing to see. But he's got a 1 out of 10 star review here. The title the subject of the of the review is Unbearable/Pointless, which I think is the title of my autobiography. But the review goes like this. An absolutely horrible movie with no story, horrible dialogue, college-level acting, and so much wasting of time. Scenes of several minutes just wasted on a character lying down, turning, and some song in the background. There is no plot. There is just nothing there to watch. Amateur hour at its most amateur. I'm writing this as I watch this never-ending boredom fest. And so Calvin shared that, and in his post he says, all part of the job, which really encapsulates what I'm trying to get across here, is that filmmakers feel free to embrace the suck, embrace the bad reviews. Because, number one, just because someone says, I don't like your movie, that doesn't make your movie bad. It's art. It's all subjective. Other people's opinions really don't matter, especially if you, as the filmmaker, are making the thing you wanted to make. That's all that matters. I support that 100%. However, if you're asking for someone's opinion about it, be prepared to receive it. And if it's whatever negativity you get in feedback or things that you don't like to hear, it might not be negativity. If I say your sound sucks, I'm not being negative. I'm telling you a thing about the technical aspect of your film. But listen to the feedback and then evaluate. Okay, is something this person said, does it ring true? Do I know that to be true? Did I know that my sound wasn't great? Okay, that's true. They called it out. Or find the things that ring true, and then you need to improve upon. And then you might hear things that you completely disagree with, and you're just affirmed more about your decision.
Can I, real quick, Matt, can I touch on what you just said about the sound, like sound sucking or whatever thing, and like pointing things like that out? A lot of times, at least in my perspective, and I'm sure as a filmmaker and editor yourself, you might notice this too. Sometimes, most of the issues in our own work, we know that they're there. And we've probably done all that we can up until that point to fix them. But we're like, I wonder if anyone else will notice. At least that's me. Like, there are a couple of moments in the Alpines that make me want to die when I see them. Because I did all I could. And it's still rough, but I can't change it now. It's out on most platforms. You can find it, and I'm sure you'd spot at least one really, really awful tire screeching sound effect that I fucked up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Don't edit when you're tired. Don't edit when you're drinking, and use a high quality pair of headphones when you're mixing audio. Otherwise, you'll end up with this, and you'll know it. If you hear it, if you choose to give me some money and watch my movie.
Headphones too. Monitors, people. Yep. Don't use your earpods. Don't use Beats headphones or your Bose headphones. Use studio quality reference monitors. Now, the headphones I'm using now are studio quality reference monitors. They're like the Sennheiser 280 Pros. These headphones are like less than $100.
They're on your head right now.
I don't really use
AirPods.
These.
I'm being a bad example.
I'm using it because they're connected into my Rodecaster for our call connection.
I don't edit with the AirPods. I guess I should say that.
Now, when I edit with Yamaha studio monitors, like the Y5s or whatever I have. I don't remember. But make sure you're using studio monitors and not just regular headphones. Regular headphones are designed to color sound, music, and enhance music for your experience. When you're using reference monitors, whether they be, over the head cans for your ears or speakers, which are called monitors, that those will deliver a more uncolored, natural sound where things are kind of separated and you can hear everything going on, and those will help you in your sound mixes. So there's my little rant about monitors.
No, but it's totally true. And when I was in high school, I got some really amazing advice from I had the pleasure of being taught by a wonderful woman, and I went to a performing arts high school, and she taught me a lot of harsh lessons early on, but some really amazing advice, because I think this is something like as a new filmmaker, everyone makes this mistake at least once. You spend so much time focusing on your image that you forget to press record sometimes on your microphone. Or you just don't really think about where you're putting your microphone. And, it doesn't matter how good your picture looks. And that's something that she told me. She said, people will always forgive a poor image. But the minute that, they press play on a video and you've got what? You're turning that video off. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
You're not watching it.
Yes.
I've done it. By the way, I know I'm recording 32-bit float, but please let that peak when you edit this, so they get what I'm saying. I also turned away.
I'll try to blow it out.
But yeah, I mean, you're watching. You watch a YouTube video, and I see it all the time. I'm like, oh my god, these images are beautiful, and then someone speaks, and if I don't like the way that they sound, and I don't mean their voice, I mean like the sound quality, I might watch another minute, maybe, but most of the time I turn it off, because it's not, and again, I'm not looking for a full package thing, but for the most part, if I'm going to watch something on YouTube or a short film or whatever, I want to be entertained. Otherwise, I'll watch one of the many David Fincher movies that I obsess over every day, because quality filmmaker, I'm not,
of course.
Disclaimer, I'm not expecting you to be David Fincher, by the way. When you submit a review, I'm not comparing you to David Fincher. That would be unfair on every account.
Dante, that's not fair. David Fincher has a bigger budget.
He's got
that's not fair
biggest
to compare
budgets.
anything I do to David Fincher. That's not nice.
Listen, if you open the door,
nice.
if you asked me, if you said, hey, Dante, can you watch Madison Baker Was Here? It's basically Perks of Being a Wallflower. It's the same. I'm going to compare it to Perks of Being a Wallflower. And I don't know if I would have liked it as much as I did. But I actually really enjoyed Madison Baker while we're on that topic.
No kidding.
Oh, I love that. Honestly, the ending is actually my favorite part. I don't want to ruin the ending, but I love that little tag.
Oh,
I just think it was such a hilarious throwback, and again, not spoiling anything, because people go pay for it. Struggling indie filmmakers here, but
you.
Such a beautiful little bookend to the movie. I thought it was great.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course.
All right. Well, I wanted to underscore Calvin's Instagram post, because the all part of the job is really how we have to take a look in totality at any feedback we get for our films. We should be our own worst critics and embrace all of that stuff while being proud of what we make. We definitely want to be that. Now, what I'll do here is, reiterate that Toolbox submitted for Best Horror and the written review. They were an official selection for July. They had a complete project. It met our criteria of an official selection. We didn't like the film, and I mean, Dre and I did not like the film upon watching it, but that is subjective. But it did qualify for competition. They did not win for Best Horror.
Matt, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I just don't understand why you would officially select them if you didn't like their film. I just don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me.
That is a good question.
That is sarcasm.
Also a question. That is also a question that the filmmakers had. Now, I'm trying to put myself in their shoes, and I'm going to read their emails, but I want to explain right off the top here, because one of the things that the submitter, the filmmaker, was struggling to quite grasp was that we made it an official selection for IndieEye, but the written review was very negative. So his question is, if you guys hated the film so much, why was it an official selection? Okay, now in most film festivals, when you become an official selection, traditionally in your in-person event where there's screenings for a film festival, you wouldn't accept a film you thought was terrible because you're not going to screen it, maybe. Now, maybe there could be judges that don't like the film, but yet it still screens, whatever. But for our particular thing here at IndieEye, we are a monthly competition. We do not screen your films. If things are already public, we like to link to them so that when we talk about them, people can go and watch your stuff. But a lot of the times, you're still in the festival circuit and you don't want to ruin your premiere status by, on IndieEye. You don't want to waste it there. So we don't automatically make things public. We don't have online screenings or anything. So when you're submitting to IndieEye, you're submitting to a competition. Now, we've received submissions that just don't make the cut. They don't meet a certain criteria. It could be completely unusable audio. It could be just complete, stuff that we deem inappropriate for what IndieEye is. And we won't accept that. Now, for Toolbox, it's a short film. It's a complete project. The content and how and the things we don't like about it are subjective, but they went out and they busted their ass and they did the editing and they put everything into it, and it is something that's worthy of saying this is a short film that should be considered for competition. And then, we have, for example, our best horror category. Who submitted for best horror? Well, there's this, and this. And some don't make it. Some do make it. There's a winner. And in the end, we have a winner. Sometimes we have honorable mentions. And then we have the written review. So it's kind of compartmentalized.
While you're addressing that, can I also just throw out a little disclaimer for the listeners?
Sure.
I do not partake in the judging process in virtually any way, shape, or form. On
that's
very minuscule occasions. Like if I've watched something and I really like it, like I like to know if, hey, did they submit for any awards? And if, but again, I don't see all the projects. I only see what's been submitted for reviews, and very few exceptions are made on other things. But if someone submits for, say in this case, let's just say, Toolbox submitted for best horror. Say they submitted for best actor for someone too. If I loved it and I'm like, hey, I don't know who you've got in the running, but you should consider this person when you guys give it a watch, I'll throw my 2 cents in there. But otherwise, maybe you guys take that into account when you do the judging process. Because I've made comments like that in the past. I know I was advocating for Jasmine for Safe House too. But that's all you guys. I'm just here to write some reviews. Because again, I've also been a submitter. So in cases like that, I can't give my 2 cents into who does or doesn't deserve a winner, because if I could, I'd be like, give it to me. And I can't do that.
That is in complete control for Dre and I. And there have been times when we received a project that I liked so much and that I thought you would like, that I have shared that with you if it's possible through the various methods of sharing through Film Freeway. But I'm glad you brought that up, that DJ Ford / Dante Aubain is not an IndieEye judge, so you don't have the influence on what we choose or
it would
not.
Be fun,
You're just
let's get the guest judge thing going.
Oh, it's harder. Maybe. There's going to be one of these months where Dre's like, I just can't this month.
I love movies. I love short films and indie film work, even the shitty projects. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that in a horrible way. I just mean, everybody makes shit. Yeah. Again, I've made shit. This guy, again, thought my film was a literal steaming pile of shit. I love it.
Well, we have to make crap first. You have to, the most experienced, brilliant filmmakers out there will make something and go, ugh, this, I did this wrong. I did this. I remember listening to Joss Whedon's commentary on the Avengers.
Joss Whedon.
And
for shame, we can't talk about Joss Whedon.
What's that?
We can't talk about Joss Whedon. We can't talk about him.
Listen, I'm going to stand up for Joss Whedon. He's never done anything to me, and I haven't seen any proof of him doing anything to anybody else.
Don't put this out there. Don't do it.
Listen, I don't know Joss Whedon. I'm just talking about Joss Whedon as a director who made Avengers, was in his commentary for Avengers, was talking about things he absolutely hated that the way it came out. And as a huge fan of the Avengers movie and how huge and popular that was, how much money it made, he's on the commentary going, oh, I really screwed this up and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's exactly how filmmakers should be all the time. If you don't have that natural instinct of just, unfortunately focusing on all the wrong things you think you did, you're never trying to get better. It's like a Dunning-Kruger effect where stupid people don't know that they're stupid because they think they know everything. They don't know. Oh, I'm like,
well, that's not stupidity. People, that's ignorance.
Well, right. But, and I'm not calling us smart or anything like that, but I'm just saying in the Dunning-Kruger effect principle, people who assume they know nothing and just keep trying to get better and have a idea that they don't know anything and they need to learn as much as possible, those are the people who get better. The people who think, I've done this, I'm amazing. Those are the people who end up not succeeding. Now, I have worked with a wide range of people. I have worked with somebody who unfortunately had no idea how inexperienced and naive he was. And all of the people around him who were supposed to love him and watch out for him fed him that same stuff. You're amazing. You're amazing. Don't listen to anybody else. You're just brilliant. And he wouldn't learn. Even with me there trying to say, okay, what we need is a 3-act structure, or little things like that. This person didn't want anything to do with any sort of knowledge or growth. Those are the people who are not going to achieve anything. And I've worked with people who are incredibly brilliant, understand all the things about movies, but then they just don't do anything at all. It's not like they can't. They have talent. They can write. They can shoot. They can do all the things, but they don't do anything. So I've worked with people who go out and do things, but they suck. And I've worked with people who are brilliant, talented people, and then they don't do anything. So there's a wide range out there of people who, of people trying or not trying to do things. What you need to be, what anybody needs to be as an indie filmmaker to succeed is the motivation, the drive to go make stuff. And the makers of Toolbox have that. They have their own vision. They have a style. I respect that. What I'm afraid they're at right now is the inability or unwillingness to listen to the feedback properly.
They're arrogant. Unfortunately, they're arrogant. And they may be surrounded by yes men in their life. And yes men are dangerous.
Yes, they are. And I think they're at a crossroads where maybe a podcast like this is a little more eye-opening than an email exchange and a bad written review, to where they can hear from us directly about what it is we're trying to say. And let me tell the people, let me give a little bit of a synopsis about Toolbox, again, which is a made-up name for the film. And I don't want to give the exact synopsis for the film, but it is about an eccentric psychopath. He is a serial killer, and people in his vicinity are starting to discover the dead bodies, or that something's going on. So that's kind of the whole point, and it's a 30-minute quote-unquote short film. I want to pull some things out of the director's statement that was on Film Freeway.
Oh, I think that's very important,
I think it's important
to share, definitely, especially if we're going to talk about the review.
He says, "We wanted to make a horror film, but as we worked with the concept, it became more comedic. I'm going to skip through some stuff here. Our ultimate goal was to leave much of the film up to the viewer's interpretation. And then he does cite, because this is mentioned later in emails and your review, he does cite inspiration. And one of those inspirations is from the movie American Psycho. Now, we all understand inspiration.
I'm so sorry. Well, I do want to correct you only for a very specific reason. Because I also have the director's statement pulled up.
Okay, thank you.
The filmmakers shared that their film evoked tones of American Psycho and Sam Raimi's horror comedies. Citing inspiration is one thing. To directly compare your work and say, it's evoking the same tone. I love American Psycho. It's probably one of my favorite movies. It's also one of my favorite books. So I was hyped going into this film because that was exciting to me. I also made a short film for a very, almost to a T, the same amount of money that they made this film for, that also cited a lot of inspiration from American Psycho. Now, I say cited inspiration because I don't think that they evoked the same tones, and I never said that it did. It was just very much inspired. I actually propped the book up. It's a prop for a reason in the film. I don't know if you remember that, Matt, but I did. It's there. I'm like, let me throw one at least little obvious shot in there so people know, like, I love this book. This is where I got the inspiration to tell this story. But inspiration, I'm not evoking tones of American Psycho or comparing Sam Raimi's horror works. And by him saying that, again, full disclosure, he's not, telling me, okay, it's this, and then I'm gonna directly compare his $1,000 project to an $8 million film, which, if I remember correctly, he did say I did. He missed the point tremendously. Yes, I did. I was also honest. I was basically suggesting that he may not want to continue to say things like my film evokes tones of American Psycho and Sam Raimi's horror comedies, because you're setting yourself up for failure for people that adore those films. It's impossible to not have those films in your mind going into this film. Again, I was excited to watch this movie, to this short film, because I love those movies. Evil Dead, huge favorite. Evil Dead 2, bigger favorite. I even like Drag Me to Hell, and a lot of people shit on that one, but I'm a fan. And American Psycho. And I'm like, okay, so that's what I'm thinking about going into this film. I didn't compare them. I did, they were in my mind when watching it because he opened that door. And there's nothing, hey, you opened the door. I suggested closing it if you're going to continue sharing the film, just because, adjust your wording. Inspired.
Dante,
great.
Let's back up a little bit.
Sure.
Let's back up a little bit. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves on where this might fit in better. Do you have the review for Toolbox available to read right now?
I do. I would happily read it. I wrote it. I'm going to own the words.
Let's have you read the review so that people listening understand what you wrote in the review. It's no longer available at the IndieEye Film Awards website because the filmmakers did ask us to remove it. So we removed it. We don't know what movie it is. We're just calling it Toolbox. But let's hear Dante or DJ Ford. Let's hear
just
that review so we can understand what they were reacted to. Go ahead and read that anytime.
And I'm going to preface this. Look, this was a harsh review, but again, I watched this film twice. And that's important to remind viewers of. If you're submitting for reviews, you get my time. You pay for it. You deserve it. And I give you my full attention for that time. And in this case, 30 minutes times 2 times the amount of time it took me to write this review, I didn't get my money's worth. But
Well, and let me interject. Yes, you're getting Dante's time, and you're getting it at a steal. Because I wanted the review prices to be higher. Dante himself suggested to make a tier so that there was a price for full-length feature films and for short films. So, and I think both prices are a steal for the time and effort that a person has to put in to watch, to thoroughly engage with, and then write a review, a thoughtful review, and to have it published and, taken care of, all of that stuff. It is a steal at IndieEye Film Awards.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about that if I keep getting submissions like this. We're going to, this is the first time I was like,
but
fuck me. Like, got to eat my own words.
Yeah.
Because I do. I watch it twice. I watched a feature-length film, essentially. You got an hour of my time. And, you always get at least an hour because I put time into writing the reviews for sure. But,
exactly.
I'm not... You're getting you're paying for a short film in this case, but short. This is just before I read this review, I'm going to throw a little advice. It's friendly suggestions. Again, you do whatever the hell you want because your art is your art. I just learned this the hard way. Short films are best kept short, especially if you want to actually go to big festivals. And I say this as someone who. And Matt, I don't know if you saw the first cut. So I made this short film a couple of months ago. It was called Polaroid. And my first edit was 29 minutes. And I loved every minute of it. But everybody I showed it to said it was long. It was long. It was long. And I said, okay. And I loved everything about it. I really did. There wasn't any, it wasn't that the content was bad. It was just long. And that's my opinion. I mean, you could watch the original cut and say, yeah, you did good by cutting this shit because it's shit. And I'd say, okay. But I took another look and I really I thought real long and hard. I said, okay, I can lose this. I can lose this. I can lose this. And then I tightened it up to 25 minutes. Guess what? Still fucking long, especially.
Yeah, that's what I saw. I saw the 25 minute, I think.
Did you? Oh, so then you didn't even see the final cut. I tightened it again.
No. Oh, okay.
Actually, I think you did. Before I submitted it, I did. I think I did finally give you the finished version.
I saw a longer version, and then before we actually ran the festival, you gave me a shorter version still. So I did see that final version, and I thought you made good decisions in trimming it down. And you end up killing some of your darlings.
I killed my favorite darling. I did.
But
I did it with the Alpines
better.
too. I cut my favorite shot of the Alpines is not in the final cut of the movie. No one will ever see it because I had to cut it.
Let's talk about that down the line here. Let's go ahead and read this Toolbox review so people understand exactly what you said about Toolbox. And then we can read the email exchange that I had with the filmmakers.
Absolutely. I'm going to finish my thought on Polaroid really, really fast. I'm going to speed through it.
Okay.
So my final edit, after all said and done, after doing about 4 or 5 different cuts and showing it, and people still saying it was long, including that very reputable website. I think it's Short of the Week. There it is. I don't know if I'm allowed to name drop that. I don't know if it matters. But people make it big. Ari Aster, I'm sure there are more. He's the only one that came to my mind. Forgive me, the others. But I was like, oh, this is going to be my big break. Nah. They told me to fuck right off. They hated that shit. And I submitted it, mind you, and I paid the feedback because I just needed to know. I submitted the 29-minute version. The submission was $30, $80 for feedback. Got the feedback, hated it, tightened it up, but I waited. My final edit was 21 minutes. It was the tightest I could make it. And even still, film festivals favor 10 minutes is the sweet spot. 20 minutes, you need to make a masterpiece if you want to get accepted into a reputable festival. And I didn't do that. I'm the first to admit it. We made the movie for a grand. I say that with pride, shortcomings and all. I had a blast making it. I'm super proud of it. But yeah, it's just, I resubmitted it to Short of the Week. They still hated it. Still had a lot of shitty things to say. Less shitty but still shitty. So best advice I can give you guys, and this isn't even, IndieEye submitting, sure, I'd love to watch a shorter film, make more money for my time. But
Fair, yes.
this is just like a general suggestion. Short films are best kept short. Longer shorts, they don't really fit anywhere because they're still too short to be a feature. And they're too long to be a short. Nobody wants them. They don't play anywhere. I'm sorry. I hate that. But I learned that the hard way.
They're difficult to program. It's easy to program 5 to 10 minute shorts in an hour block before a feature for a in-person film festival. Or I guess they do online presentations now, but I doubt anybody's actually watching. But in-person film festivals, people want to program your short. Make a good short, make it 5 minutes, make it 7 minutes. It's easy to program inside of an hour block because that's how film festivals will do it.
Yeah, they want to be able to, share as much, work as possible, and also for the people paying, they want to see as much work as possible. I've gone to festivals. I've never sat through the long shorts. Honestly, like I've gone and I should have known that. I made one and I thought I could be the exception. You're not the exception. You're just not.
Sure. Yeah.
It's rare, maybe. I wasn't, and that's okay. But I personally, I've never sat through those. I'm not going to pay for that block. I'm going to see the feature and the 10 shorts for the amount of time it would take me to watch one short. I'd rather just watch a feature. I like movies.
Well, I want to add to that, and I know I'm trying to get us to this review, but I mean, you brought up such a great point. In the first short film I made that I tried to do something with, I mean, I made plenty of shorts prior to, trying to be a professional. But the first short I made called A Special Place, which is available to see.
Is that about the shed? I think I just watched that.
It's got a treehouse.
Yeah, you posted about it on Instagram. I just watched that.
Did you watch it? Oh,
it was long, man. Cool. It was long.
See, this is what I want to bring up. I wrote it and then I had it trimmed down from like 45 pages to 30 where it's at. The people who love me, who are talented around me and read the script were like, make it shorter. And I didn't. And, I stuck to my guns. I made it what it was. It's a 30-minute long short film. And I didn't understand at the time why 5-minute shorts were important or why something like a 30-minute is just too long for that genre. Or, I mean, not for the genre, but for that type of thing. It's got to be amazing. And now, the point of A Special Place was to set up a bigger universe. I wanted to actually make my delusions of grandeur was that it was a film franchise. And I wanted to, this is the setup for the main protagonist for this film franchise. And so it was just, a 30-minute series of how this person develops. I
wish I knew that watching it. That actually filled in a couple of gaps. I'm like, that makes more sense because now I see it. I'm like, okay. I a couple certain choices throughout the film kind of make more sense now.
Okay,
I get it. That's,
Well, I could that. Am I
reviewing your film now?
On forever. I still had no idea what I was doing back then, and we shot that at the end of 2014. Well,
listen, I don't like tree houses to begin with, and you scared the shit out of me, so.
God,
it worked out. My biggest faux pas with it, it was long. It was long.
Yeah. And watching it now, I'm like, oh, I totally get it. I could tell this story. I could tell the best part of this story. I can tell so much shorter because there's and I'll get into this when I talk about Madison Baker, but my big screw up with filmmaking anytime I do anything is that I make whatever act one is extraordinarily long.
Same.
And it doesn't need to be, but I indulge myself and that's a problem. But yeah, I also made a 30-minute short and it didn't make sense to me until much later that this was bad because fortunately, we actually had a really good festival run and it got accepted almost everywhere it was submitted to and I shotgunned that thing. I put it out everywhere.
That's awesome.
And people People just, festivals seem to love it. And I thought, oh, great. This is awesome. And I didn't realize that, this is extra special because it's hard to program a 30-minute. And like, I went to festivals where this was screened and it was screened along with shorts.
Kids.
But they still made room
You
for
had the
this
secret
film.
ingredient. You had kids.
That's exactly.
That actually
dude,
sounds
that's my
weird as
secret
hell. I didn't
ingredient.
mean it like that.
Absolutely.
But that is.
Oh, no.
It's like good kid actors, secret ingredient.
Yeah. I mean, just making things, it's easy to program things that are easy for everyone to digest. So anyways, let's.
Oh, sure. Real quick, though.
We've
FYI,
beat that point
viewers,
to a pulp.
Matt knows how much I don't like long, short films. That was a heavy critique. That's how you take feedback. You just take it. You say, thanks. Yeah. I totally see what you're saying. I agree. Because most people do.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And even if you don't agree...
you could have told me to go fuck myself. We still would have finished the podcast. I don't care.
I know.
I respect it.
In this special 3-hour episode of IndieEye Film Awards, even if you don't agree with the feedback, then that's still helpful information because somebody watched your film without influence and thought this. So you need to take those things into consideration. They're at least data points for you to maybe tweak something or just take things into consideration. Ultimately, if we're all striving to be filmmakers and make movies and be in theaters and that kind of stuff, which is it's like not particularly my goal in life. I feel like I've done what I wanted to do, and I just keep doing things for me for fun. I work professionally, but I do what I do for me for fun. But if you're trying to get into Hollywood or be on that type of level, you're making a commercial product for the widest range of people as possible.
Did you just say widest or widest?
Well, both. Statistically speaking.
Unfortunately. That's so sad.
No, widest as in wide angle lens, as in largest amount of people
that's what I thought
can possibly get. And studios, and we've all heard these horror stories, right? Where studios will say, well, we need to have a thing where this happens and let's make it more commercial friendly like this and make sure this Dr. Pepper is in frame. Like, it's a business. Mm-hmm. You need to make a movie that appeals to the most amount of people possible for the genre that you're making. And that is a absolute business, and it's more cookie cutter than you think. Now, you can be an auteur, art house filmmaker with this subjective 30-minute horror short and be as artsy as you want to be. That's fine.
But if you're not David Fincher and you're not Christopher Nolan, you're not getting programmed. You're just not.
Right.
At this level, you're not.
Right. Now, there could be plenty of small festivals out there that embrace those things and want to show those things and people who want to see those things. There's room for us all.
Yeah.
But again, it's just Dante and I talking about your film. This was our opinion. And Dante's going to read his review finally now. Please go, Dante.
Okay. So I just want to preface this with, and I know that we weren't shy about this before, and obviously the review was requested to be removed from the website. Again, you're paying for honesty. You're paying for my opinion. It's my opinion. You don't have to listen to it. I think I know what I'm doing, but again, I'm not Spielberg. I'm not a brilliant filmmaker, and I still have a lot to learn. What I love about doing this is that and when I'm honest with these reviews, and sometimes like harshly honest, I've made all of the mistakes that I'm usually addressing. I have made them and I have learned from them. My hope is that if I'm harsh on something, sure, I might just not like it. It's not my cup of tea. But the thing here is that this content, this kind of film was my cup of tea. And this is a very brutally honest review. It's the harshest review I've ever written for IndieEye because I was very disappointed. But it's still just my opinion. Here we go. With films like American Psycho and the horror comedy works of Sam Raimi used as inspiration, it's hard to adequately judge Toolbox without comparing it to those films, which is honestly a great disadvantage right from the jump. Then add in that the film attempts to touch on Kevin's deteriorating mental health state with sloppy effects work and frenetic editing choices. It feels like they were just setting themselves up for failure. Toolbox follows Kevin, an eccentric psychopath trying to maintain a web of lies as his gruesome urges and sloppiness begin to snowball out of control. He is an incredibly inept serial killer, desperately trying to keep up appearances as his nosy neighbors seek to uncover what is causing a terrible smell within their apartment building. The director claims that Toolbox is a film meant to be left up to the viewer's interpretation, that there is no right answer for what exactly is going on in Kevin's mind. And I get that. However, given how poorly executed much of the psychological elements are, it leads me to believe the filmmakers simply had zero understanding of their own material and chose to pass it off as an artistic choice. Being a massive fan of American Psycho, both the novel and film, which this is notably compared to, I am not at all impressed by the comparisons. Unfortunately, I'm insulted. The worst part about it all is that the technical presentation, unfortunately, isn't there either. Had it been, I would have had a slightly more enjoyable experience. I'm convinced that the final edit was composed entirely of camera audio without a microphone in sight. Overuse of stabilization effects lead to tremendously bouncy footage throughout. It's very headache-inducing, very out-of-place musical choices, and significantly misplaced edits that lead to severe pacing issues. The short is 30 minutes as it is, but it feels substantially longer than that. There is a chance a tighter edit could truly make this watchable. Toolbox is not a good film in any sense of the word. If you're looking for a movie with a discernible plot, this is not for you. In fact, this movie isn't going to be for many people at all. As a huge film lover, I didn't have a great time sitting through this, and the average viewer is likely to turn it off after just a few minutes. I hope the filmmakers aren't done with this. I hope it was just a rough cut. If it was, another pass might make this watchable, but as a final product, this is a hard pass for me and just does not work.
Okay, so that's
Reminder.
DJ Ford /
Oh, go ahead.
Dante Aubain. That's your review. That's what we published on the website. So the filmmaker wasn't particularly fond of that review, and then he reached out to me via email. And I always tell everyone, if you have any questions about how we perceived your film, whether you won or didn't win or were not an official selection, if you have any questions at this point in IndieEye, as we grow, it may become impossible later, but for now, I invite anyone to email me, Matt, at hello@IndieEyeFilmAwards.com. If you have any questions, we're here to answer the questions if you have them. We're trying to separate ourselves from other film festivals by being as transparent and approachable as possible. So this filmmaker of Toolbox reached out and said... Can I
just tap into what you just said, too? I'm going to do something really nice here because of how much I love you guys and film. So just to add to what Matt just said, you can always email him. You're not getting my personal email, sorry. But if I write a review that you're not particularly fond of, I'm going to tell you what I will do, and I'm going to tell you what I won't do. I'm going to start with what I won't do. I'm not going to lie. If you said, can you please, change this? No. It's my opinion. If I didn't enjoy your film, that's what you paid for. You didn't bribe me. I'm very expensive. If you want to bribe me, it's a lot. The price is higher, and even then, I still might say no. But everybody's got a price, right? But here's what I will do. If let's just say, because again, it's indie film work. I've submitted films and then made a lot of changes. If I didn't enjoy your film, and you've made some changes since the first edit that you've made, email Matt. I will happily take a second look. And if I want to revise my review after taking a second look, I will do that. And again, this is free time, and I've got a life. It may not, seem like it, but I've got one. But that is something that I'll do because I'm just like you guys, and so is Matt. And that's something that I want to stress because of the email he's about to read. We are your people. We're indie filmmakers. We are hustling and struggling, and this is what we love. That's why we do this. So, yeah, if I wasn't particularly kind, if I didn't love it, You're not going to change my opinion. I'm not going to rewatch the same movie again because I don't do that ever if I don't like something. But if you've made changes, whatever they are, I'm not saying, oh, I made changes based on your suggestions. Not asking that. If you've made even the slightest change, I'll watch it again for free and
very fair.
Possibly revise my review.
That is quite generous. A good point. Well, I will make sure to mention this on the next episode, the next monthly episode of IndieEye.
And obviously you can reveal my name too.
Yeah, well, point. And I'm certainly going to tell everyone to go listen to this rambling podcast. But that's I'm glad you said that. That's very generous because
not going to happen overnight.
Time is money. Sure, right, of course. But yeah, well, everything's going to fall into more context after I read these emails, and then we could talk a little bit more about Toolbox, our take on Toolbox. We'll also give some constructive criticism about Toolbox, and then just to remind the viewers, we will read negative reviews of our films, and we will talk about that as well.
Absolutely.
So, after the filmmaker of Toolbox read the review, and I'll also say we did not talk about this movie on the July 2022 episode of IndieEye Film Awards.
Matt, can I ask you why you didn't? Did it have anything to do with the negative review?
Not directly, but I did feel like since it was not the winner, like we have to manage the time as it is. And we try to make the episodes around an hour because there is post-editing involved and everything. And, I just think trying not to take up everyone's time every month. People want to hear who are the winners, what did you think, and then go about their lives. So I try to minimize it and try not to be too self-indulgent about everything we received. But I didn't feel like specifically talking about Toolbox was helpful. Considering some really bad stuff we received in July, I made very broad statements about indie filmmaking, what filmmakers should stay focused on, improve upon, because we had a lot of not selecteds in July of 2022. It's probably our most ever. Usually it's a couple. And this time it was more than a handful. And it's never a good feeling to hit that not selected button and then send somebody a notification that your movie's not selected for this festival that you paid to try to be in. I hate that.
But can I confirm this? I mean, I think I know the answer to this, obviously, but just for the viewers, because you guys work hard. This is, but it's also something you do because you care. This is a choice. And when Matt and Dre choose to not accept something, you still got your money's worth because they watched your work. They considered it. They didn't just go, I don't want to watch this today. I don't like that thumbnail. Right. They put their time and their consideration in. And when you're paying to submit for film festivals, you're not paying for yeses. That's not what you're doing. I wasted. I mean, I don't want to say I wasted. That's poor choice of words. The amount of money that I spent, and Matt, I'm sure you've done the same, to submit to festivals that you did not get into, that's just part of the investment. And I'm not an incredibly well-off person. It's an investment, and I made it, and that money essentially didn't go anywhere because we didn't get selected. Right. But our film was watched. We submitted to Sundance. We basically donated because we knew we weren't going to get in, but we submitted. And we just have to hope that somebody watched it. But I can assure all of you here that Matt and Dre watch your films, whether you're selected or not. They watch them, which means you're actually getting genuine, real, and honest human beings watching your work and carefully considering it. I think that's important for you guys to know.
Thank you for making that point. And it is true. And it's what inspired us to even try to start IndieEye, was the fact that having gone through the same thing you described, you're throwing a lot of money out there, you get, some selected, some not selected, you win here, you don't win there, but then you never really know why, and then some festivals never even do a notification.
I don't even get emails. I just get not selected.
Yeah. Well, there's no repercussion for a film festival to just not follow through with things on Film Freeway. And not to call out Film Freeway because it's an amazing service, but they cannot police all of the scams.
They will give you a refund. Like if you're like, hey, I didn't hear anything or whatever, just a disclaimer.
That's true.
They won't give you a refund if you're not selected. But if you're like, oh, I didn't hear anything, they'll consider a refund. They'll do that. But you're right. There's still not necessarily a repercussion for the festival if they don't get back to you on the deadline that they say they are. And that's something that you guys are very good at. You're like on point. Keep that in mind, just in case they ever do miss a deadline. just think about all the times they never do. You know, life happens. We're all still people. If they miss a day,
right?
Don't go for the jugular. They're good people, and they never have before.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, so far we've been able to make everything, and the notifications, the actual physical in Film Freeway dashboard where I have to go to each film and say whether it's a winner or whatever. These are like the last things we do. We do the official selections ahead of time, not ahead of time, but we have a notification date where we give whether you're an official selection or not. And then shortly after that, once we've published the festival and changed the website and everything, then we send out notifications that say you're an award winner or honorable mention. So these are some of the last decisions we make because we try to leave it to the last minute just in case we change our minds. It's never a knee-jerk decision or anything.
Yeah, and think about that, viewers. They're, the month of August, the month of July, they leave that shit open. I think if I'm correct, you leave that open until the last day of August, right?
Not the last day. We tend to cut it pretty close. We try to factor in what's happening at the end of our month, which is generally also the most busiest time for Dre and I professionally, the most hectic time. So we try to build in time to do it. And what I mean by that is, we try to throughout the month watch things, but a lot of the times it might be within the last 10 days that we really dig into watching things, making notes, and then I need to go through and we're selecting winners, filling out the categories in our own little document type thing, writing notes about what we want to say, including links and media, posters, images if necessary. We try to collect the social media. Like, we go through a lot of prep. And then Dre does the website, tries to put everything we can up on there. And then we record the podcast, which takes hours. And then the editing, which takes hours. And then the uploading to YouTube and Buzzsprout to feed out to all the podcast things and putting in all the metadata and the descriptions and all of those things. It's probably a good 72 hours for us, like 3 days, and not 72 hours straight, but 3 days worth of we're doing IndieEye, we're putting it out, and it's done. And then I try to follow up with making Instagram posts at some point within the following month to tag people and make those announcements. So
and it's just you guys, right?
To say,
just do it.
Yeah, it's just Dre and I. Yeah, just Dre.
Think
and
about
I.
that,
That's
people.
It.
Also, this is the definition of a power couple. That's just so you're all aware. Strive for this.
We run our own businesses individually. She has a thing, I have a thing. Then we both work full-time freelance for what we do for a main client. And then we do freelance work for other clients. And then I also am an editor for several YouTube channels. So we're just constantly going.
And you've never missed an IndieEye deadline.
Because not yet.
Think about that,
you're
people.
You're jinxing me now. August is screwed. Coming out September 15th.
If he misses a deadline, forgive him. Because never missed a deadline, him or Dre. And again, look what they got going on. They are your people. They are your people.
Thank you, Dante. And I'm instead of reading the email, I've been lingering on this point because it is referenced in here that this filmmaker doesn't feel like we are here to support indie filmmakers.
Fuck that guy.
I find that
Sorry, that was
silly
the beer.
because no problem. I find that silly because we go so out of our way when most film festivals on Film Freeway are illegitimate. And what do I mean by that? It doesn't take much to start a film festival on Film Freeway and collect submission fees from everybody and do practically nothing. You could just click, like Film Freeway does its own Laurel generator now. We have our own that Drea designed. You can, if I wanted to, I could start a festival on Film Freeway. You do need to use your ID. It needs to be legitimate. You have to be a legitimate person. They do verify that. And don't get me wrong, I love Film Freeway. They are providing an awesome resource for filmmakers. But a lot with those little gems that are out there that you can submit to and regular established film festivals and then other film festivals that are trying to do the similar things as we're doing, they exist. But probably, in my opinion, 80% of the film festivals on Film Freeway are absolute worthless crap. And I know that because I've gone through the process.
Yep.
And for years, I've submitted things, and just whether it's selected or not, sometimes there's just they don't even update a website. And it's just so much crap out there that I was like, you know what? I bet we could do it, and we could talk about it, and we could give people feedback. So
absolutely.
Good luck trying to find something that's like IndieEye.
You know what? I got another comment. I know I'm like really gassing you guys up now. But it's really easy for people to send emails, right? Like anybody can send an email. I don't know about you. I'm not Gen Z, but emails are still kind of sketch sometimes. You know, you get these sketchy emails. This is another reminder that these are your people. Matt hit me up on Instagram. On Instagram. That is how we connected. He sent me a DM.
Right.
He slid in my DMs, not in a sexual way, in like the other way. That is how we connected. But like, how are they not your people? You know, I don't know if you love Instagram. I know you guys are a little bit older. Not old though, you know, on the young side of older. But
we're immature, so it helps.
But hit me up on Instagram. That is your people. That is your filmmaker people. He hit me up on Instagram. People don't do that.
Yeah,
I think he sent me an email too. But like the friendship, the relationship, it started on Instagram. And
right.
You know, I know, you know, Gen Z's got TikTok and Twitter and all that other shit. But he's a human. He's real. You know, it wasn't some, you know, not that there's anything wrong with like perfectly formatted emails. I love those. You know, it makes it feel real. But when somebody's like, hey, I think you submitted to my film festival. My name's Matt. I'm like, love that. Because you don't get that anywhere else. I didn't get that at Sundance. I didn't get that. I didn't even get that. You know, I guess it's hard to compare you to Sundance because Sundance is Sundance. But I also I submitted
get so many
to
submissions.
A lot of festivals at this level as well, like smaller, tight-knit festivals, because those are important too if they're legitimate. Because you're right, there's a lot of crap out there. There's a lot of festivals that are just, you know, in it for the money and not because they care. This is the one and only time that I get spammed every day. I've got like 8 spam messages of, here's my discount code for my, you know, Paris Indie Film Awards. Bro, you're not in Paris. Right. It literally says you're in New York.
Every day.
I'm like, get the hell out of here.
Every day.
Berlin,
exactly.
Paris, Dublin. You're all the same. The font's the same. The website's the same. You don't care. You want money.
Exactly.
You know, fuck those guys.
It's all
That's
scams.
what I want to say to those people.
It
is a legitimate scam. And I submitted to some of them. I wasted my money.
Sure.
But
absolutely.
In doing that, I found you guys. Fun fact, viewers, if you don't know, we submitted, my producing partner, Mally Corrigan, and we submitted the Alpines on it was your very first month, right?
First one.
Right?
Yep.
You know, I mean, maybe that's why the added connection was there. You know, maybe 6-7 months down the line, he's like, I don't want to fucking talk to these people. But who knows? You know, we got lucky. We got month number 1, and IndieEye changed my life. Legitimately. The only reason that our film, and keep this in mind, you know, I'm not telling you this is going to happen for you, but I'm telling you it happened for us. we submitted the Alpines to IndieEye, as well as Sundance and all these other, big festivals. And we had a great festival run. But because of IndieEye Film Awards, our film got distribution. That is how we connected with the person that got our film distributed, through IndieEye Film Awards. Nothing else. Right. Somebody reached out and said, hey, great job. I heard you guys on this podcast. I'm like, podcast? What the hell are you talking about? Podcast. These are your people. I've said that however many times. These are your people.
Well, thank you, Dante.
And changed my life.
I'll go
only for the best.
Finally,
now you can read
half
your
an
email.
hour later. I'll get. Shut up, Dante.
I know. Look, it sounds biased. Seriously, that's what it is. But it's not. I promise. Get Mally on here. She'll attest too. That's two people that'll say it.
Well, and this has been one of the most wonderful things that I hadn't even thought about when we started IndieEye, was just some of the relationships we've made. Now, you and I have talked so much, and we've collaborated on things like these reviews, and we've had a lot of discussion about your short and the Alpines. Of course, we've done extra bonus interview episodes. There's one with Dante. There's one with Mally Corrigan, and that's been wonderful.
It out.
And
super
it's
talented
these
writer.
Relationships. Yes, she is
the bomb.
It's these relationships that have been so rewarding from IndieEye, and there are other people out there that I've been able to connect with that, we all share this commonality of we're just trying to be creative and do the best we can. And so watching these people who submit to IndieEye and we communicate with via, Instagram or on email, and then I see their next work and it's even better and it's cool, and I get to see their success while following on Instagram. That's the best part about IndieEye for us. That's why we've been doing it now for a year and a half, and are so dedicated to delivering the podcast, delivering things on time, being honest, and just, while we can't guarantee distribution for anybody, we can guarantee that we'll watch it, that you'll know we watched it, and that hopefully, time permitting and things fall right, we can talk a little bit about your project on the podcast. That's what we promise, and that's what we deliver every time. Okay, so I'll finally get to reading the email. You've heard a lot. If you're still listening to this podcast, thanks for sticking to IndieEye and listening all the way through. Dante wrote this review about Toolbox. It was a less than stellar review. The filmmaker did not like the review. The filmmaker reached out very politely via email. We had there's no bad blood or anything, but I will read these emails to be quite frank with everybody and to show probably how you shouldn't go about things like this. Now, so here's an email I received, the initial email I received from the filmmaker of Toolbox. Hi, IndieEye. Firstly, thank you for allowing us to be part of your festival. We are thrilled and honored to be included with this special group of dedicated people. That said, we can't help but wonder why we received a review from IndieEye's DJ Ford, or Dante Aubain, that called the film unwatchable, insulting, and not a good film in any sense of the word. We'd understand that review if we'd been rejected, but we were accepted, and we're left wondering what we missed. We also, of course, understand that it was just one person's opinion. That said, we need to ask if the festival stands behind the insult-laden review from DJ Ford. We haven't been reviewed much and expected honest yet constructive criticism. We thought that this festival was looking for micro-budget indie films per your festival's description in Film Freeway. This film was made for under $1,000. Why were we panned in comparison to American Psycho, a film produced for $8 million, just because we cited it as an influence? In short, why would you accept this film to your festival if your own people hated it this much? We ask for clarity. Does IndieEye stand behind DJ Ford's review? Thanks. And then my reply to that is this. Hello, filmmakers. Firstly, thank you for sharing your work with us. We appreciate and consider all submissions, spending a considerable amount of time trying to sort it all out before the podcast. Toolbox was submitted for Best Horror and for a written review. The written reviews are performed outside of IndieEye judging, and usually we, Dre and I, do not even see the articles until the website is being updated for the month. So whatever opinion or experience DJ Ford has when reviewing a film, that's his own to express. He is someone I trust to deliver fair and honest reviews while having a wide range of taste, along with an experienced appreciation for filmmaking. I can't speak for DJ, but I would assume he's not directly comparing budgets. Your film was also an official selection because it certainly qualified to be considered in the category in which you submitted. It just wasn't selected as the winner for the month of July. Specifically, we felt Toolbox lacked any sort of story or narrative structure. And while we didn't discuss your film on the podcast, I did give some very broad, applicable feedback for several films involved, as well as a large group of not selected projects. Ours, or anyone else's opinions aside, you filmmakers completed a short film, and you should be very proud of your efforts. Plenty of quote-unquote filmmakers set out to make something and fail to cross the finish line. That's what matters, not our praise or laurels. Having made your film, you're better today than when you first hit record. Keep going, keep experimenting, learning, cussing out reviewers and all. That's what I said to them. Then I got a reply back. This is from the filmmakers back to me. Matt.
They missed everything you said.
Hold on.
Oh, disclaimer. Yes, I've read the emails. I have. Naturally. I mean, this whole thing happened because of me. I'm so sorry, Matt.
Okay, so the email from the reply from the filmmaker is this. Matt, thanks for getting back. We have some thoughts and we'll leave it at this. He is comparing, literally within the review, an $8 million production to a less than $1,000 production as if it were apples to apples. Ford says, quote, with films like American Psycho and the horror comedy works of Sam Raimi used as inspiration, it's hard to adequately judge Toolbox without comparing it to those films, which is honestly a great disadvantage right from the jump, unquote. He also says, quote, being a massive fan of American Psycho, both the novel and the film, which this is notably compared to, I am not at all impressed by the comparisons. I'm insulted, unquote. Seriously? Quote, Toolbox is not a good film in any sense of the word, unquote. He was unable to find one single positive in the film? This is a film that you accepted into your micro-budget film festival. It was reviewed in comparison to a film that grossed $64 million simply because we cited it as an influence. Do you see the contradiction here? We understand, of course, that it didn't win. That's not our gripe. We don't want a refund for the ludicrously harsh review, but we request that you remove it from your website altogether. Can you do that? It makes no sense that a film that made your festival was immediately crushed by your own review, with no constructive criticism, and offering zero silver lining. Quote, we love indie films. No budget, micro budget, low budget. We are your people, unquote. We are not getting that feeling. We're indie filmmakers looking for a constructive review, not to get skewered by a festival that accepted our film. We paid to be reviewed, not blatantly insulted. It would mean a lot to us if you were to remove the review from your site. Thanks, filmmakers. I replied to that, and here's the reply. We instantly, as soon as I got that email, I had Dre remove the review from the website. You know, I have no problem doing that. Respect the wishes of the filmmakers. No big deal. So this is my reply after removing the review from the website. The review has been removed from the website per request. The status was also changed to not selected, as that seems to make more sense to you. The rest of this will likely fall on deaf ears until you've further matured as a filmmaker. You are hyper-focused on a singular aspect of the written review, which, I believe, you're grossly misinterpreting while ignoring what's really being said. And what I mean by that, just as a side note here, I think this filmmaker was really focused on dollar amounts and comparing American Psycho to Toolbox, which you weren't directly comparing, and dollar amounts have nothing to do with anything. So that he was so focused on that, and instead of actually listening to what you and I are both saying as constructive criticism. And I move on. As I said, this is things I'm telling him that I feel will fall on deaf ears until he's matured as a filmmaker. And I continue. You'll need a much thicker skin in this business. Beware of those around you who tell you you're great and that your work is amazing. They are not helpful for your growth. Embrace being polarizing. It is far better that someone hate your film than be apathetic towards it. The opposite of love is not hate, it is indifference. And either way, someone watched it. You're looking for constructive reviews, and we give that each and every month for an hour plus in the podcast. As I said before, there is a lot of feedback that is applicable to your project in the July 2022 episode. I'm truly sorry that you are not getting that feeling. I'm sure you'll have a better experience with one of the many other indie-focused festivals that take time to discuss several submissions on a podcast every month. Practically everyone out there is willing to take time out of their lives to give feedback and offer advice based on professional experience. Not only that, but follow up with direct and personal responses. Now, I have one final statement to this filmmaker, and I'll preface that by saying, as a film festival on Film Freeway, every day we are given a list on our dashboard of films that we can click on and offer discounts to. These are films that have paid Film Freeway to be promoted to film festivals. And every few days, I might go on there and offer a 50% discount to these films that have paid Film Freeway to promote so that we could see them. If I think, oh, this could be interesting, I will offer a discount on there. But that is specific to Film Freeway and their advertising in relationship to us as a film festival. So for Toolbox, they were one of those films that we saw, and I read the synopsis and I went, oh, that sounds interesting. And I sent a 50% discount code to the filmmakers to enter IndieEye. And that will be important for the next thing I say.
This was before they submitted?
Yes, that they submitted based on that 50% discount code they received from IndieEye.
Oh, like the mark. I think you sent us one of those.
Yes, I absolutely did based on your poster.
I think that's how we found you guys.
Yes, your poster was awesome.
Oh, Mally will love to hear that. She was the one behind the poster.
So that said, this is the last thing I say to these gentlemen on this particular email. Finally, you're welcome for the 50% discount you were offered. In the end, after you've spent far too much money on festivals for this project rather than building a budget for the next film, this $12.50 it cost you to enter IndieEye will have been the best money you spent toward being a better filmmaker. Good luck going forward, Matt. Which is true. They submitted for $12.50. They're not out a lot. Now, they did pay for a review. That's not discounted. They used the discount on their submission to Best Horror. Fine. That's great. That's perfect. And just for to be fully transparent, we don't, as IndieEye, as Dre and I, we don't keep the written review money. I forward that to Dante. Well, I paid Dante, but I pay him the amount that's paid to us. So it's not like we keep a percentage of it. What you pay for a review goes 100% to Dante.
You didn't take my money.
Yeah. Trying to. So just as an aside. And then I received one final reply back from the filmmakers of Toolbox, and it goes like this. Matt, it's strange and frustrating to be accepted by a festival that outwardly hated our film. If you can't empathize with that, I'm not sure what else to say. 2 filmmakers' advice to keep in mind as you grow as a festival. Don't bash your own selections and then say IndieEye has nothing to do with IndieEye's review. Thanks. So, what I'd like to say...
You didn't say that.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
You said exactly the opposite of that.
Right, exactly.
You never said it had nothing to do with it. I'm basically employed by you. I'm an independent contractor.
This is the problem. And this is, I have no ill feelings towards these filmmakers. I very much empathize with them, and I feel sorry for them that they can have this much engagement with a film festival that's really trying to help, and that they're completely closed down to what's being said. Instead...
You know what that reminds me of?
What?
That's like, you saying that reminds me of like when my dad, when I would do something bad as a kid, and my dad would say, "I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed." It's so much worse.
Well, it's true.
It's like, fuck, man, now I'm pissed. Now I'm sad because of that.
Yeah, well, it's, and it's so honest, because I want nothing more but all filmmakers to be great and grow and get better and enjoy the experience. Whether you become the next Spielberg, Tarantino, or whatever, or if you're just like me, you do it because you love it, you want to experiment, and whatever professional things come along. That's how I've approached it my whole life, and it's done pretty well for me. But I just want to see people get better. I believe that raising the tide lifts all ships. I don't have to keep Dante down because I want to be the big filmmaker. I think there's plenty of room for everybody in this industry, and the market and the world will take care of itself, and the cream will rise to the top, and you will find your audience if you work hard, make things that are true to you, make good things. You're going to go where you're supposed to go. It's all about your own effort. But I find it really disappointing that these filmmakers of Toolbox can have this much exchange with me and completely ignore the fact that I've said, your film lacked structure. It lacked story. I don't like it because of that. And you said a lot of the same things I felt in your review, and I've watched it now 3 times myself.
I'm sorry.
And I think these filmmakers
not for what
should
you said,
submit,
just that you watched it one more time than I did.
I think these filmmakers should pay again. But because I knew we were going to do this episode, I really wanted to get back into it and take another look. And it's tough. So I'll be really frank here. We tried to be helpful. And if you listen to the podcast at all, and I'm talking to the filmmakers of Toolbox, if you listen to the podcast, you will hear a lot of the things I said about the movies that were not selected, and kind of the general advice I give. And gosh, if you listen to all of the episodes, audio is always a big point, structure, why am I watching this? What questions are you asking? Why would I watch another scene of this film? You kind of have to entertain people and bring them along. And that's not what this is. Now, all of my opinion and your opinion is based on our experience watching this. If these filmmakers feel like we didn't get it, okay, that's fine. I will simply state that if you're explaining, you're losing. And it's up to you to gain viewers. And it's up to you to entertain your viewer. Now, maybe you have people who think, oh, this is brilliant. Okay, it can be. I'm happy that you made a film that you're very proud of. But I felt it just wasn't very good at all. Now, I think these people have a vision. I think they have a style. And when I say, I'm kind of mixing up people and director and filmmaker, submitter. This is a duo making this film. And I don't want to be more specific because I don't want to call them out publicly. So it's just kind of all blended together there. But I like that they have a very specific vision. I know that they set off to make this and do certain things with it, and I get it. Trust me. I've seen it 3 times. I get what you're doing. And there were some things I thought were really cool. And to be fair, when we started it, Dre really liked the very beginning, kind of, just like you said, frenetic editing. The when a bag is being brought outside and these cuts are made and things like that, and it's kind of this, it's this, excuse me, it's this really wacky kind of music and this feeling, and you're setting this tone, and I thought, okay, This is interesting. The problem is it never delivers on that. And it just becomes monotonous and uninteresting and practically unintelligible. Now, I'm going to stop and come back to my opinion in a little bit. I'm going to give you a chance to, after having read your review out loud, you've heard these emails out loud. Dante, let's talk more. What was your experience watching this? What do you have to say as the dust settles on this?
Sure. Okay. I'm going to be incredibly candid here. And you know, not that I wasn't candid already. I didn't like the film. I didn't. But I didn't, yes, the review essentially wrote it off. But there was a disclaimer at the end of the review, if you recall. I said, I hope that they're not done with this. I hope this is a rough cut. I stand by every word that I said. I also believe that they missed the point. Like Matt said, they hyper fixated on one element. And no, I did not ever compare their film in that sense. I didn't go,
but you did.
Oh, they made this for $1,000.
It's right there.
Nothing.
No, it's right there in your words. You said I'm comparing it exactly to American Psycho. You compared it. That's an $8 million film. You compared it right to that. My film was made for less than $1,000. It can't be American Psycho. Sorry.
I'm gonna speak directly to the filmmaker. I'm gonna tell you something, bro. Own your budget, because I'm telling you, even though I already said it, I made a film just like yours for the same amount of money, and I owned my budget. I wore that as a badge of honor. Don't use it as an excuse. Wear it, because that's what you've got. And also just use it a little more wisely next time. That's just me being a dick.
Buy a microphone.
Sorry. Not sorry. So the thing here, and again, and something that I'll say, I'm like losing track of my thoughts a little bit here. So yes, I did compare the film, and I actually misspoke. I did say I used the term inspiration in my review, and I shouldn't have, because that would have been fine, and I did mention that earlier. Feeling inspired by a film to create something like it, that's great. Every film has comparables. That's part of making movies. Everything's been done before. You're just doing it your own way at this point. But I misspoke, because feeling inspired is one thing. I do a lot of research before I dive into a project. I give you your money's worth. Again, I read your director's statement. I looked into your other work. I tried to see what else I could find, because I'm interested and I want to feel like, again, I'm giving you your money's worth. So I read your statement and I was hyped. Again, I was actually excited diving into this. And it takes a lot. I don't rarely get excited. I love indie film work. I love watching indie films, but it is also a paycheck. I'm being honest. Like, I love it, but I'm getting paid to do it. I'm not going to shy away from that. But I was extra excited about this one, because I was like, ooh, this is my kind of film, because it is. I was your audience, and I hated it. I know that that's an opinion. Using the word hate is an opinion, and I'm sorry. But I didn't completely write you off. Again, I said, if this is a rough cut, prove me wrong. That's what I want. I want to see you tackle this again and prove me wrong. One of my favorite films and one of my favorite moments in a movie, Whiplash. What does J.K. Simmons say? The two most harmful words in the English language are good job. Mm-hmm. Could not agree more.
Right.
Because I had a lot of people growing up tell me I was amazing. I was awesome. Bro, I was 14. No, I wasn't. And I needed someone to tell me that my work sucked so I could get better.
Right.
And then I met an incredible teacher in high school that did. And I made her my best friend. And I was like, teach me more. Tell me more. I quit sports. I quit everything to focus on my craft, because I wanted to be a filmmaker. and I wanted to be a good one. I didn't want to be, what's the guy's name? Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah, Tommy Wiseau. I was going to talk about
guy.
that.
Oh God, I'm so sorry that I basically that's something I'll apologize for. I'm sorry that I just compared you as this unnamed filmmaker to Tommy Wiseau.
Well, no.
But if you're surrounded by yes men and you're going to remain insulted and get offended, that is all you're going to be. And I'm sorry that I'm sounding super condescending right now by tightening up my tone and talking really, really slow. But it's a fact. And we're going to get into that when we talk about all the shitty reviews about our own movies.
Well, I'm glad
we learned from them. Learn from your experiences. Make this movie better. Tighten it up. My cat feeder just went off. You know what? Just keep that in.
Yeah. Oh, I'm keeping it.
I love him. His name is Dewey. He's named after one of my favorite movies, Scream.
Oh, okay. Cool. Well, I'm glad you brought up Tommy Wiseau because I was going to bring that up as well. And if you're not familiar, Tommy Wiseau directed and starred in The Room, which is the
worst movie ever made.
Which is a terrible movie, but it's so bad that it gained a cult following. It would sell out midnight screenings for filmmakers, people who love cinema. Have you? Okay. People would go to watch this film because it's so bad. It's unbelievable. And Tommy Wiseau
I did not hit her. I did not.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark.
He spun this crappy film that was so awful into legendary status, so much so that Hollywood needed to make a film about this bad film being made, and that film's awesome. So it's embrace the suck. It's okay. And you should be watching bad movies. You should be making bad movies because those are ways you get better. So let me shoot off these rapid fire notes I wrote on this third watch of Toolbox. Okay. So this is gonna be very blunt, and here's your feedback. Here's exactly what I thought. It starts right. Horrible font. Horrible. Now, Dre is a graphic designer. She gets paid very well to be a graphic designer. You don't need to be a graphic designer to make wise font choices. I will also state that a lot of you indie filmmakers out there, you got big problems with font. You need to get somebody with a clue who can give you a font to use. There are so many. I'm always fascinated to hit play on something new and watch how you present it to me. Does it look professional? And you don't need...
That was a big thing you said about my film. You complimented the presentation of my short.
Oh, yes. Because I appreciate that.
I still have that text.
Oh, really?
Thank you for caring about presentation.
Yes.
I don't delete my messages.
Because it's so... it's part of the experience for the viewer. And this font they use is ugly. The opening is ugly. This film has horrific white balance problems. And I'm not talking about this...
Can I drop another quick credit to Calvin Shepard, or Calvin T. Shepard? Safe House 1618, presentation was fire.
Yeah, it was. It was really good.
Again, did not adore every aspect of that film.
Sure.
Damn. Those first 20 minutes, that's presentation. Take a lesson from it. Watch it. Rent it. Buy it. I don't care. Just pay for it and watch it. Don't download it illegally. Not cool.
Okay, I'm going to go on now.
Okay.
The white balance of this film is horrible. And I'm not talking about the scenes that are in reds, because that was intentional and those things are at least stylistic. I'm shooting in a room that's a regular room color, but my footage is yellow, is an amateur move. It looks bad. Whoever was working your camera doesn't know how to set white balance. If the person who is working your camera... Hold up. Wait. Let me go on. If the person working your camera did know how to set white balance, and a director chose this look, well, one, as a cinematographer, I would have been like, you know what, then I gotta go. I'm not delivering this amateur-looking shit that looks like you don't care about your image. But the reason why I know the person in charge of the camera work is not a professional, that's fine, you don't need to be, but you didn't know what you were doing. And that's okay to call that out, because you're credited as a director of photography, and the director is ultimately responsible for all things with the film. So I don't care about acting, sound, cinematography, production design, whatever it is, whatever's bad is ultimately the fault of the director, because the director is supposed to set people up. You're supposed to find the right people to do the job, to put out your vision. So if that's your vision and you're okay with it and you submit it to a film festival, falls on you. So I'm going to call out the DP. I'm going to call out the director, both, because it's clear in this film you don't know how to use a camera. Quite often there's loss of focus, and not like, oh, this is stylistically out of focus. It's shitty focus. It's bad because you didn't block properly. You didn't know where the camera was going. You didn't know what people were doing, and you don't have control of your camera. This film is meaninglessly abstract. And I like what you said, that it's like you're trying to pass off bad filmmaking as artistic,
it's a choice.
choices.
It's like, well, what does it mean to you? Now, again, I say this because it's a mistake I've made. I've been that jackass that said that as an 18-year-old, 18, I'm 29
right.
now, that said, well, what does it mean to you? I was this and that. But I was full of shit.
Yes.
And most people are, all right? Like, unless you're Darren Aronofsky or someone else, you're full of shit. You don't know what the fuck you made.
Right.
So you decided, ooh, this is interesting. I don't know what it means. Let me throw some cool images at you.
I mean, there is
and maybe you'll decide what it means. That's the vibe that I got. I still, I didn't even mention this in my review. There's like an old man who's just kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
The fuck was that?
The fuck was that?
There's a, you know what? You're gonna appreciate this because you're a Cheers fan. You remember when Cliff tried to be a stand-up comedian, but he wasn't good,
yes.
and all of his jokes were like gay marriage. What's up with that?
What's up with
like,
that?
And that was all
Yes.
it was.
Yeah.
And it was like it wasn't funny. So yeah, old man in toolbox. What's up with that? What the fuck?
Yeah, and
I mean, it was meaningless.
there is a Kubrick.
I just was like, does he own a boat? Like, is that where the people go? Because I don't know why. He just reminded me of like, oh, Captain, my Captain. But it's just there. It's like, hey, Grandpa, come over for a day so I can film you. I'm so sorry if he's not your grandpa. He's probably not.
Well,
And he might not even be that old. But I've got young grandparents.
there is a
so,
Kubrick approach to making a film that's open to interpretation. Very much a lot of Kubrick's films are like that. It's specifically, famously, 2001 is very open to interpretation. It just, this film did not feel like it was intentionally artistic in that sort of way. But I want to continue to go down my list here of things that were bad with this film, so people understand why we so deeply did not like it. And I wrote this note down. It's an abrasive experience, from the editing to the sound design to the music to the acting. Everything is very abrasive. Well, that was our intent. We wanted it to be uncomfortable.
What sound design?
But I know. You could say that was our intent, and we intended it to be uncomfortable for the viewer. Well, okay. Well, you got that. And it wasn't fun to watch.
I was uncomfortable. My mother was uncomfortable, and she loves Evil Dead. She loves Sam Raimi movies. I watched it at my father's house.
30 minutes of an abrasive
Sorry, I got really Italian there.
Okay, let me continue.
Sorry.
It's 30 minutes of an abrasive experience is not a fun watch. The audio's horrible. throughout. Like, there's some points where I'm like, okay, they probably used a microphone there, but most of the time I'm like, there's no microphone. There's bad room audio, the cuts between shots. It's so amateur, so sloppy, and it doesn't need to be. You don't need $8 million to get good sound in a contemporary time of indie filmmaking. You really don't. I talked about the camera work. It's so bad. It lacks intention. It lacks any good blocking. A lot of the times the framing was just, not great.
It was weird, but not good weird.
Exactly.
Right? I got that too. Like, it's like... But you try to pass that off as abstract. That's what they said. But no, some of it was like... What are they doing?
The acting...
I'm like, what is this?
The acting throughout was very poor. And I appreciate the concept that this is a crazy person. There's wacky things going on. You're trying to be comedic. You're trying to be, in this horror film. Like, I totally get what you're going for. I understand that and I get that. But the delivery of it was very, very bad. I was never...
What is that smell? Oh, my God. What is that smell?
And you never have people really seeking the smell. Like, they're just sitting on a couch. I know I smell something. It's like, I don't get it. There is a substantially extended sequence of the person coming up to the building, opening the door, and then walking in. And it's like three cuts to tell me that somebody walked into a building. That's bad filmmaking. That's amateur filmmaking. These are the types of things you do when you first start. Because you think, okay, well, he walks up, he walks in, let's get a shot of that, get a shot of that, get a shot of that, and then you cut it all together. Instead of just, like, I mean, this is, again, unfair to compare, but I just watched the finale of Better Call Saul last night, and
No words.
I'm not.
Nothing.
I'm saying nothing.
I'm
saying nothing.
I didn't watch
no
it yet.
spoilers for anybody. But
what I'm doing tonight.
But the DPs of that show, and specifically Paul Donahue and Marshall Adams, the DPs of that show, well, and it, credit to the directors of the episodes and the showrunners, Vince Gilligan, etc. They use a lot of wides and let things take place in those wides. And I love that approach. In fact, that's how I wanted to shoot Madison Baker was here. But, for just this little instance where someone's
working with kids,
someone's walking into...
You did a great job with what
Well,
you had.
thank you. But this instance where someone's walking into a building, you don't need 3 cuts to tell me that. It could have been right from the inside. If you want to show me the outside, fine. Show me the outside, and then the person goes in, and now we're in. I don't need the doors open, doors closed, walk away, now cut to a shot of in the hallway walking. That's bad filmmaking. That's bad editing, period.
Can I tell you a funny story about opening doors?
Okay.
I was that kid in high school that did that one time. And we were, so again, it was performing arts high school, and this is really funny. I want you guys, viewers, I want you to try really hard to picture this. So we're in a classroom, and I made that mistake. It was like door opens, next cut to side of door opening,
Sure.
and then someone enters, new cut, and I watched, and we were watching something, and my teacher, who was an industry professional, she was a big commercial director. Before she started teaching, and she paused my project right there. She's like, let me stop you right there. Who's got an iPhone? Yeah, obviously everybody put their hands up, or well, most people, sophomore year of my high school. So 2009 iPhones. Yeah.
Blackberries.
She's just like, okay, come here. I was a BlackBerry
Yeah.
guy, so I didn't actually have an iPhone. And it was my film. So I embarrassingly did not put my hand up. So somebody's got an iPhone. She's like, come here. And she's like, okay, take your phone out, take your camera out, record this. She's pointing the person at the door, and she leaves the room. She says, keep recording. And we see her walk out of the little window frame of the high school door. And then she enters, she walks in, she closes the door. She says, cut. The guy stops. And she looks at me. She says, that's how you film a person walking through a door. That's also how you drop it in your timeline and move on.
Yep. Nice.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Sorry. But honestly, fucking amazing. I was like, yes, that's how I need somebody to tell me that. I don't need somebody to say, oh, I see what your intentions were, but why don't you try this? Nah. I need the yelling. I need that is how you do that.
Yeah.
Facts.
Absolutely.
You know, I guess you can say that was her opinion, but at the same time, I think it was just like humanity's opinion.
Right.
Because nobody wants to see that. And it took her yelling at me in front of 20 other students while my film was paused to say that to me, to go, I get it.
Yep.
I do.
Yep.
And I did.
And that's
never made that mistake twice.
That's okay. You have to make that mistake and then learn from it.
Yeah.
And you grabbed your camera, you're filming something, you do what you feel, what feels like this is probably how you do it. And then you get told a different thing. And that's okay. It's okay that the filmmakers of Toolbox did this. But here's the feedback. Now you learn, now you get better. Now, if you can have those inserts, if there was something important about the door or the handle, if we needed that information for maybe later, then that's when you do your inserts or your cuts, things like that. I did a door thing on the short film I talked about earlier, A Special Place. I have shots of opening a door simply because I knew I needed cuts, at the time. And I look back on that and I'm like, oh, there was no point for that shot. That shot served no purpose, and this would have been better if it hadn't happened. I did it. You did it. We all do it. Don't do it. So at some point you got to learn.
Yeah, don't tell me I'm a fucking asshole for hating your film or pointing it out. Like, bro, I'm trying to help you. You don't want my help?
So
don't submit.
More notes that I have here is you don't care about anybody, and I'm saying you as in the viewer. I don't care about anyone in this film. I don't know who I'm supposed to be rooting for, following. I don't know who the audience's eyes are. I don't know who really, if there's a protagonist and an antagonist. There's no character development. There's in a 30-minute film, there's no arc.
No, the neighbors are entirely what's that smell?
Yeah. And there's so much potential there for fun. Like, I get what they were trying to do. And I like that. I think it's kind of this comedy horror thing is fun. What a fun thing to play with. It just wasn't executed very well. And this is no knock on the people who are helping him make the film, on the actors, the neighbors, those people. They came across really well. I think the directing was bad. And ultimately, like I said, everything falls on the hands of on the responsibility of the director. If the acting is bad, that's the director's fault. That these people may be very talented actors if they're told to do a certain thing a certain way, or the director sees something, doesn't like it, but doesn't correct it, doesn't massage it, make it a little bit better, help the actors deliver something more of what he's looking for. If you don't do that as a director, that falls on you. That's your fault. You could have brilliant, talented people give a poor performance, and that's your fault. So, I'm not blaming the actors. This falls on the responsibility of the filmmakers. Casting is directing, as I always say, but you don't care about anybody's storyline in this. So again, I don't want to see the next scene because I don't care. I don't care what happens. The sound,
if I recall correctly, wasn't one of the actors the director?
The what would be considered, I guess, the protagonist and antagonist is in fact one of the filmmakers. Yes.
I thought so. I was going to say, I'm not going to blame the actors, but damn sure am I going to blame the casting director.
Right.
That's who you can blame.
And I'll say that
you wanna run it up the chain.
This particular person put a lot of effort into his role. He did give a performance. I just didn't like it. I felt it was too much, and there wasn't enough creepy. There was just more corny, and I felt like it would have been a better film and still been comedy/horror if he just delivered a better performance. It was just too silly, and he was never scary. I never cared about what he did to anybody. And the blood and then the cleaning the blood. I'm like, I don't need this for 30 minutes. But the sound is obnoxious. The sound throughout is obnoxious. Your mix is obnoxious. There's either no sound design or bad sound design. Again, sound design is an opportunity to immerse your audience in the world you're asking them to believe in. And that opportunity was not taken advantage of at any time. There's just awful music and just that's it. I wrote sound is obnoxious because it was. I didn't want to listen to it. It's 80%
music. I couldn't get that track from the awful, random, ridiculous, bouncy rooftop sequence. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That unfortunately, and again, I'm gonna bring it back to I watched this film twice. I watched most of these films twice. You get your money's worth. This shit stuck with me for the wrong reason. You know how like sometimes you hear that Taylor Swift song and you can't get it out of your head?
No.
It's just there,
no.
Whether you want it there or not. That was this little beat. I couldn't get it out of my head. I'm like, I'm working out. I'm laying out by the pool, and I heard it like a curse for weeks. For weeks. Even literally like 3 days ago, I was like in the shower, and it was like, people have shower thoughts, and like that was my shower thought. And I'm like, ah! And I make this crazy sound. I'm like, get out of my head.
Well, I will spin that to a positive for these filmmakers because, as I said,
the film stuck with
before,
me.
Yeah, that's something that stuck with you. You and I hate this film. But embrace that polarization. You made us feel a certain way. It doesn't need to be flowing and loving, yeah. But you evoked us hating the film. I would feel so much different and wouldn't take any time to make a podcast about a film that just bored me, that did nothing and bored me. We've seen plenty of those. Now, those aren't good either. The worst crime is to be boring. At least this film, you gotta see it. There's constant flashes and things that I will say make it visually interesting. It's just not supporting of the narrative, which there is none of. So it's just out of place. Like there's so much potential, and it's just not. They don't know how to deliver this because there's no structure, and I'll take a side note to say this. You're talking about working with people who don't want to conform or anything like that, and we all start off by going, I'm not going to watch the great movies and all of that because I'm bringing my own art to it. I don't want to be influenced by this or that, or I don't want to steal from those things. I'm bringing my own fresh vision. I get it. We've all been at that point when we've started. And I have worked with an individual who not only thought that, but the people around him who knew better. They knew better. They should have known better. Also supported the fact that this individual was like, this person doesn't watch a lot of movies like that because he doesn't want to be influenced. He's more of a savant. He doesn't need to watch these films. That is so ignorant. You need to know
100%.
You need to know what good filmmaking is. You need to know what bad filmmaking is. You need to understand the rules of filmmaking, the rules of storytelling. I don't want to follow the rules. I want to make my own rules. That's fine. You understand the rules, then you break the rules. You break them in a way that you're still doing the right thing. Storytelling has been around for as long as mankind has. And it's developed to a very specific art. Now, it's broad, but it's specific. There's a way to tell stories. There's a way to write songs. There's a way to write poems. It's not all just whatever you want it to be. It can be, but then it might not be good. But there are ways to do things that make it good, and blueprints that say, this is how you make it good. Now you fill in how your story and then kind of manipulate things in a way that You're telling your story throughout these rules. And yeah, when you're really educated about this, it can ruin watching movies for you. You will go to the movies and be like, oh, I'm 75 minutes in. This is when the second act turn is going to happen right now. There it is.
That's my life.
That will ruin
Every
movies.
time I go to the movies,
Yes.
I can't turn that shit off.
So that can happen. But you as a filmmaker need to understand the rules and then feel free to break them in creative ways. This person, these people who made this film, I don't think they understand narrative structure, storytelling, character development, keeping your audience engaged. Those things are lacking. That's why we don't like it. Again, it's an abrasive experience. It was a terrible score. Doing things in front of a camera is not filmmaking. You're just doing things in front of a camera. And then you're telling the audience, oh, it's up to you to figure it out.
That's not even vlogging.
Yes. And then you're giving all the
It
homework
could
to
be,
the audience. That's not fair. And some of your audience may go, this sucks. So in total, Toolbox, its reach exceeds its grasp. It tried to be something. It fell short, in my opinion, and in your opinion. And that's why.
But still just opinions.
Yes, just opinions. But these are, here it is. You want the opinions? There you go. I don't know that they'll ever listen to this, but that's what we're saying. And I'm saying this out of love.
No, they've turned us off by now.
Probably. If these filmmakers were in the room with us, I would say these things to you, okay? I'm pretending that they're here in front of me. I'm saying these things to you because I want you to be better. I want you to tackle your next thing. Just like I said in my initial email, keep going. Keep doing it. And when you get bad reviews, fine. Cuss out the reviewer. But get better, learn, and keep recording. I would rather see these people who made something I hate make a next thing and get better than I would the individual I talked about who was the savant, who didn't want to learn anything. Because that person had...
Yeah, but then you make a fan out of them, again, and I know we've talked about Calvin a couple of times on the podcast, and he's just the best example that I can give. I didn't love his film. I really enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. Mm-hmm. To me, there were some glaring issues. But he, again, stand by this statement. I don't lie. He's got a fan for life.
Right.
Because it's there, and even his responses once he was like, "Are you DJ Ford?" Hysterical. We had a couple of really nice conversations about film and stuff, and I'm like, this is a filmmaker. This is somebody who's going to make a fucking masterpiece one day. And I'm going to be right there cheering, maybe not literally on the sidelines, we're not pals or anything.
People in the theater going, can you be quiet, please? I'm trying to watch the movie, and you keep cheering.
I'd be that guy. I would be that guy. I'd be like, bro, shut the fuck up. I follow him on Instagram. I want to enjoy this. That's what I would be, because that's a filmmaker. That's somebody who actually is hell yeah, ready to learn and grow. And I can't, he's actually, another little, it's not a shameless plug actually, because, it's not my movie. I'm not working on it. He is, again, I follow him on Instagram. He's working on his next project. I don't know too much about it, but it's got an Instagram handle. It's called Popular Monsters. What a fucking title.
Cool.
That's a title. I would see that movie, even if it wasn't my cup of tea. But he's working on something, get on that train, because I'm sure he's going to crush it.
Now, I want to underscore something here. We've said this a million times, but our opinions do not define the film or the people involved. They are simply our opinions. And I think filmmakers need to find the things that may ring true to these types of opinions. Clearly, they are creative people that put in a lot of effort in making Toolbox, and we encourage these people to keep pushing forward. We're not saying, you're crap, you're a terrible filmmaker, go apply at McDonald's. We're giving you honest feedback. And I've received messages via email or Instagram DM from filmmakers who have submitted to IndieEye, and we've been less than favorable about their films, or maybe there's been things we love about it, but we also say, hey, and this. And they've messaged, and even people who we've panned message me and say, thank you for the honest feedback and the criticism, because yeah, I totally agree with what you said, and I knew that was bad, and I appreciate the suggestion. I'm going to use that going forward. I can't wait to submit my next thing and show you what I've learned. And those are the people who embrace the learning curve and strive to be better, and those are the people that you will see succeeding. So embrace the suck. Read the negative. Let the negativity be out there. Let the bad reviews be out there. And then show everyone wrong. Just like Calvin T. Shepard did. There are people who don't like his film. There are people who like his film. But he says it's all part of the job. And you've got to have that thick skin. And I'm going to throw this out there for everyone. IndieEye Film Awards is not the only place that'll do a written review for money. I would love to see the filmmakers of Toolbox. And of course, if you ever see these reviews, there won't be a movie called Toolbox. Unfortunately, there's a movie called Toolbox out there, and they're like, "Hey, that's not our film." but it's
not called Toolbox.
Please go look for other sources of reviews, and I'm going to recommend on the top of the list Film Threat. Submit your film for review at Film Threat. Submit to IndieRed, UK Film Review, Take Two Indie Review. These are all websites you could submit to. And you mentioned another one. What was it?
Oh, so that was it wasn't a public review. It was so there are obviously, I'm sure, short narrative filmmakers have heard of these websites. Short of the Week, Film Shortage, all the heavy hitters, the ones that you're like, if I can get my film on there, Next Stop is like a Vimeo staff pick.
Okay.
Next Stop Hollywood. So Short of the Week is a big one. It's been around for a really long time. They're not gonna give you a written review. That's feedback, which means it could be brutally honest in a bad way or brutally honest in a good way. But it's not gonna be dolled up pretty and looking nice. It's not the kind of thing you want to send to a friend and say, "Hey, check out this review I just got."
But what was the site again?
It's not for that.
Dante?
It's for you.
What was the site?
This particular website was Short of the Week.
Short of the Week.
And this is not a knock towards them. They hated my film.
Polaroid.
Hated it.
They hated Polaroid.
I didn't Polaroid.
Okay.
Hated Polaroid. Now, a lot of people enjoyed Polaroid.
Yeah, I did.
I found the email too. So I could definitely throw some thoughts in there. They hated it. Now, critics, for the most part, some of the websites that Matt had previously mentioned, were very kind to my film, and I'm very thankful for that. But it's also still their opinions, and Short of the Week's was one particular person's opinion. He did not like my film, and that's okay. He was very, very harsh. Not in a public review, because I requested feedback, but I never would have known. The reason I paid the $80 for the feedback was because, obviously my hope was I made a masterpiece. They're going to accept it. Life's going to continue to go on in the best way possible. But at the off chance they didn't, I wanted feedback. Even though, I wanted it good or bad, but obviously I got rejected.
Right.
And then I spent $80 to get ripped to shreds. And it was so worth it because they saw the first edit. They were the reason that I made the changes. My first edit, again, 28, 29-ish minutes. Mm-hmm. My final cut rang in around 21 minutes. Still not a perfect film, but I'm very proud of it. And, if you want to check it out, you can find that on my Vimeo page. Just search my name, Dante Aubain. That was a shameless plug.
I can link it in this description too, right? I can use that link.
Oh, you can, but you don't have to.
Well, I absolutely want to. Yeah.
Thank you. Though.
Absolutely.
That's so kind of you.
Oh, well, I want to link to all these things into the description that we're talking about, these other readers.
Oh, and if you hate it, DM me and tell me you do. I want to know why.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you to go fuck yourself, I promise. I'll say thank you. I'll appreciate your feedback. Or honestly, even leave me an IMDb review. It could be a bad one.
Sure.
That's okay too. I don't want you to tell me that you love my film if you don't. Because I'm not going to learn from that. And, not to say, like, obviously, yeah, again, I want to make a perfect movie. I want everybody to love my movie. I want to be David Fincher and Christopher Nolan and all those people.
Sure.
But, on the flip, they've made flops. Let's remind everybody that David Fincher's first film was Alien 3.
That's
Christopher
not fair.
Nolan,
That's not
and I know
fair.
that
Studio
I know it's
involvement. But yeah.
You're right. It's not fair, but technically it's part of his filmography, even though he's disowned it, because we can do that, but it's still us. Right. Christopher Nolan, I know I'm going to get some hate for this one. Tenet was pretentious, stupid, and a waste of life and money.
See,
my opinion. Just my opinion.
And I love Tenet.
And I like and I love Christopher Nolan. You did?
I love Tenet.
You're crazy.
And I hate
That's
Memento.
What I'm going to tell you. You're crazy.
I love Tenet, hate Memento.
I don't know if we can be friends anymore. Is that real?
Yeah.
Is that a serious thought?
Those are two absolutes for me.
We might have just found the friendship deal breaker. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. What the fuck? Really?
Yeah, I really
You're kidding.
love
You're
Tenet.
kidding.
And I think, a lot of people, well, I mean, I don't want to...
Cue me when the joke's over. Come on.
No, absolutely serious. And maybe we need a Christopher Nolan specific podcast. But yeah, those are my... Now, everything else he's done, big fan of. I didn't just... Memento wasn't for me, and it's certainly not a bad film. It's a great film. I'm just... I don't care. And Dre loves it. Huge fan of Memento. And
I need to start talking to her more.
Yeah. So
lost a little respect here.
There you go. Opinions differ. And I want to put out here that another place I would tell people to go submit their projects to is Indie Film Review Podcast. And they do a podcast every week. They get so many submissions. They try to do their best to get to everything. And I think you can now Patreon them to get your film bumped up to the top of the list, but they'll review shorts, they review indies. And these guys, if you want a place that'll probably just love your film for whatever it is, these guys are super honest about their reviews, but they thoroughly enjoy watching and talking about indie films. And that's the Indie Film Review Podcast. We've both been on there. We've both had our films reviewed.
Those guys are hysterical. They spent 5 minutes making fun of my name.
Oh, you know what? And I love that.
Trying to mispronounce my last name.
You know what they did for me? They called something out in my movie that just like, it caught me off guard, and I went, oh, man, I really failed at that. I didn't get offended or angry. I went, oh... They pulled my pants down on that one, and yeah, I got to think about that a little harder. And I'll talk about that more, but since we're talking about...
I don't remember what they said, but one of them loved my movie and one of them hated it.
Yeah, well...
It was really funny. It was like the Odd Couple, going back and forth, listening to them talk about it.
And there you go. You get the different opinions, and you might be able to take away something. And these guys, they had a lot of fine things to say about the film and about my film, and that was fun to listen to, and you get validation on some things. But then somebody calls something out that you go, oh, I can be a better filmmaker having heard this type of feedback. And yeah, it was a little embarrassing, but I was so thankful that he brought it up, that it was something that he bumped against, and they laughed at, they made jokes about it. And I thought, that's really good feedback, because fortunately, and we'll talk more about my review after we talk about your reviews, but just to gloss over a large thing, the reviews I've received from Madison Baker Was Here have mostly been really super kind. In fact, you put on my radar the first negative review I think I've seen about it today, right before we recorded.
I'm sorry.
I can't wait to read that and tell people. But let's talk about the Alpines and your experience getting positive feedback, getting negative feedback. What are some of the worst reviews you received for the Alpines?
Oh God, some of the worst reviews. So I'm going to take this back to something that our unnamed filmmaker Toolbox said, trying to call Matt and Dre out as not being our people. I'm going to tell you something, indie filmmakers listening. Our people suck. They're also amazing, but like they hate you more than your mom and dad. I promise. They are awful. So I don't really navigate to like IMDb or anything for my reviews. Yeah, there are like big like film lovers up there, but I check out Letterboxd because these are the people that are like, they love movies enough that they're gonna blog, and like this whole website is dedicated to, ooh, these are all the movies I watched this year. So like when my movie ends up on a person's list of like, I watched this year, that's awesome. Unfortunately, the majority of the people that have, you know, watched my movie, at least the ones on Letterboxd, did not enjoy it. You know, not everybody. I mean, we were gracious, and we were very thankful and happy to hear that we had some good reviews. And the thing, and I know that this is a little bit of a flip here, because technically I'm a critic for IndieEye, and I did not like Toolbox. The critics have mostly been incredibly kind to my movie, which I'm very thankful for. We really only had one like kind of subpar review, and it wasn't even necessarily bad. It was a 3 out of 5, and it seemed, at least from the review, it seemed like the biggest reason that they didn't enjoy it was because they didn't like the ending. And, you know, obviously endings are hard, and I get that. Hey, you know, you don't like the ending of my movie? That's okay. You know, there are things I don't like about it either, so I feel you. They're mostly my fault, because I changed things on the writer. Sorry, Mally. Totally gonna own that fuck up. The written ending was much better, but we didn't film it. Oops. You live, you learn. So let's see. So I've got Letterboxd queued up, and I'm gonna sort a little bit here. So you know what? Let's do. I'm gonna sort to lowest first, because these are the best ones. One of them I mentioned already, and they're nice and simple. They're not long. They're it's like just enough to hurt your feelings and make you want to just like crawl in a hole and drink yourself to death, or accept your feelings and accept your bad reviews and go, word, time to learn. Okay.
Right.
So the first one I already mentioned. This is I'm not going to read the stars, but you can imagine that they're bad. I don't even know what some of them mean. One of them I mentioned already. It's nice and simple. Literal steaming pile of dog shit. Thank you, Josh. Ho-hos, and I hated it. I don't know what that means, but thank you, Kate. Terrible. Thank you, John Van Dyne. Just terrible. Big yikes, Kate. Oh, okay. Seb Pepe. This is it. A movie so bad that will drive me to make my first YouTube review. Come back after I've taught people how to white balance a camera. Hey, I white balanced my camera. Sorry that you don't. Oh, you know what? This is something I'm going to defend, actually, about Toolbox. I like the jaundice, yellow, pissy look. But again, I'm a David Fincher guy. Right. I'm not a fan of red skin tones. So that's my thing. But hey, I guess Seb Pepe is not a fan. Total effects. This one I like because, you know, this is something Nally was kind of going for. Not the negativity, but the first sentiment. This is like the big chill if everyone was drinking paint thinner. Insufferable garbage.
Wow.
Oh, man. Well, I'm sorry, Ronnie Gardaki. I'm not going to drink paint thinner. I assure you that no one on my set did. But I did have a trip to the ER one day. That had nothing to do with paint thinner. Let's see. What else we got here? Oh, this sounds okay. One of the most dog shit movies I've ever seen. My roommate and I spent almost an hour talking about the plot holes and ways we could make this movie better. Do it.
Good.
Let's go for it, Jillian Riley.
You sparked
Give it a shot.
conversation.
We made it for $10K. I'm gonna own that budget. You tell me what you could do. Let's. I'll bring you on my next set. That's not even like a joke. If you read if you listen to this podcast, Jillian Riley, and you hit me up, and you are in the States, and I can fly you to wherever I'm filming for less than $100, probably won't happen. But those are my those are my conditions. I will get you on that set.
What an offer!
You can tell me how you can do it better. So let's see. We're gonna read more here. There are only two character types: manly man and woman sex haver. O'Malley's not going to be happy about that. None of the actions in this movie that progress the plot could have been anticipated, and yet it is sold to us that they were. Basically, this movie criminalizes the mentally ill and tries to get you to sympathize with said characters in a really weird way at the end.
Oh, jeez.
The only reason I'm going to say this is because she's very candid and open about it. We get a lot of, slack for that, and the movie gets hit with, oh, this is bad for mentally ill people, or, this is a terrible representation of mentally ill people. It was written by a very depressed human being, and they were real thoughts. So tell me again how mentally ill people are supposed to behave, act, and feel, Jillian Riley, as well as everybody else that criticized us. Again, you do you, your opinion. Mental illness is different for everyone.
Yep.
But I'm telling you who the writer was. She'd tell you who the writer was too, because it was her. And they're real. So maybe there's something to that. Maybe there isn't. That's okay too. Nothing makes any sense. Character motivations were stupid. Every single character sounded the same in their dialogue, and you could tell 7 people in a room do not have the same dialects and speech patterns. They do if they're all from the same tri-state area of America. Also, this movie dictates everything to you, and you aren't allowed to infer anything because you're stupid, and you can figure it out if you wanted to. I actually appreciate that. Thank you. I'm sorry. I actually thought I did I balanced the subtext well. Not for Jillian. That's okay. Some people are smarter than others. I guess I actually thought perhaps I was, being too, vague for the viewer at times. And I was worried about that. Looks like I was wrong. And I'm okay with that. I just learned something for the next one. This movie could have been an hour shorter. Maybe it shouldn't have been made at all. I put more thought into this review than the whole crew did. I bet you did. One of the worst movies I've ever seen. It was 40 minutes in before we learned anything meaningful to the plot. Fair. I literally kept watching just in hopes for some good murders of bad characters. Why? Why do people have to get murdered? Why? I don't, it's a psychological thriller, sure, but people can live.
Well, Dante,
I was disappointed.
I think it's fair, and I'd like to mention this too. It's fair to mention this, that as you did get distribution, and then some aspects of the promotion were kind of taken out of your control, The Alpines, which is a thriller, was more promoted as a horror, which it is not, and which I like. And that, unfortunately, probably a lot of people who went in to watch The Alpines were expecting a horror, and it would not particularly deliver as a horror. So it was sort of misgenred in the promotion of it. And I can see where if I'm keyed up for a horror film and I go watch this film and it doesn't really deliver on the blood and guts,
you're going to think you just watched the worst horror film ever made.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it's completely
I totally agree.
unfair.
You're right. We when the film hit, and I think that this is why it did so well with critics and not so well with general audiences. When we submitted the film to festivals, IndieEye included, the movie was always marketed as more of like a mystery drama, but because it had horror elements, it was distributed as a horror film. But again, I love horror movies. Mm-hmm. If I didn't know what The Alpines was, and I threw it on thinking I'm about to watch a horror movie, I'm going to hate it. So disclaimer if you decide to watch this after this review, but you might not because you probably think I'm an asshole at this point. That's okay too. But if you don't, and you're like, word, I respect honesty from indie filmmakers because I want to get better too. Cool. Check it out. Thank you for the money. Or lack thereof if you download it illegally. That's okay too. Just watch it. I won't say that about other people's films, but hey, if you're just going to download my movie to watch it, I'm glad you're watching. But yeah, that is a thing. I guess I could have prefaced with that, but it's okay. They're bad reviews. It's all good. There are, this is a good one. I was disappointed. It seemed like the writers thought lack of information equals suspense. In case they read this. It doesn't. Just in case you read this, Mally, or listen to this, it doesn't. If you hate someone and don't know how to hurt them, make them watch this movie. Oh man, I could just imagine like this movie being like on the screen, like in the remake of A Clockwork Orange. Like this is what to not do.
Well, and let's talk about that a little bit, because we can read 1,000 bad reviews. Not that Alpine has 1,000, but you know,
Can I read just one
more?
Just
Sure,
one more, I promise.
sure. Let's do.
It's super short.
Okay.
It's one sentence.
Okay.
This movie is so bad. LOL. That's it. That's the review. 0 stars. This movie is so bad. LOL.
Oh God. You know, it's so. I hope those listening who are still listening listen to how Dante's taking these in. Now, these bad reviews don't make you feel great, but it's about how you contextualize the whole thing. Like, Dante, talk about, you've read these bad reviews. How did they affect you initially versus, you know, so much time has passed? How do you maybe see them differently now?
Well, so I'll be honest, and you mentioned it before. It's slightly unfair, and we had a little bit of an advantage going in, preparing for these bad reviews, because we knew the film was going to be marketed as a horror film. And the way that I explained this actually to Mally, because I've been a victim of this before watching a movie. And this is, I don't even know how many people have ever heard of this movie. I don't know how big it got. I watched a movie years ago. I think it came out in 2007. It was called Bug with Ashley Judd and Michael Shannon. And the movie was distributed by Lionsgate, and it was pushed aggressively as a horror film. The movie was based on a play, and it was about, if I remember correctly, a schizophrenic person who was convinced that there were bugs under his skin, you know, like the government's watching them. Mm-hmm. Nothing about this film. It was not a horror movie in any sense of the word. Yes, it had some pretty, like, aggressive imagery and whatnot, but it was not a horror film. And it was shit on because of that. Mm-hmm. I liked the movie, but I did not like it as a horror film. I just happened to like the movie. I was like, oh, that was good. I didn't think that was what I was going to watch, but that was good.
Right.
And that's how I felt. The rest of the world is not necessarily always thinking that way. I think that the only reason that I did think that way was because I'm a filmmaker, and it was also 2007. I was in high school, so the mindset was very different. Sure. But that's kind of how I compare it to. Like, going in, we knew we had a very successful festival run. We got a lot of really great awards. I believe almost every one of our cast members actually was singled out at some point of winning a Best Actor award. Maybe one didn't, one or two, but we also still won like a couple Best Ensemble casts and whatnot. So like when somebody...
They were all great. When
somebody says, oh, the acting sucks, I'm like, okay. Like, it is what it is. People are subjective. You know,
sure.
There are... Okay. This is going to hurt some people. Do you know who... I don't even know if I'm going to say her name right. Anna Paquin?
Yeah.
Did I say her name right? Do you know who that is? I think she's one of the worst actors I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, yeah?
I don't think she's good. That's my opinion. I'm sorry for True Blood fans and everyone else that loves her. I want to die when I hear her speak. I just don't think she's good. I feel the same way about Julia Stiles.
Aww.
I'm trying to throw a man in there so I don't sound like a misogynist. I am not a Julia Stiles fan. Let's see. Oh man,
well,
I'm trying to think of like a man.
They won't be reading for any of your
mind.
films.
No, they won't. I mean, unless like beggars can't be choosers. If my next film is a Hollywood film and they're like, Anna Paquin loves this, great, I love Anna Paquin.
Yes.
Because she'll get my movie sold. And hey, you know what? But at the same time, it's not all their fault. Sometimes a movie is, it's a script. There's a lot of things that go into
right.
it.
Absolutely.
But I'm not a fan. But I know a lot of people that think she's amazing. It's subjective.
Right.
It is. It's an opinion. So when people say, "Oh, these actors are terrible," okay, we didn't have DiCaprio or Amy Smart on our set, but I stand by every single one of those performers and the choices that they made, the performances that they gave. They're amazing. This is an indie level film. And not even that, I'm not saying, oh, they're really great for like the kind of movie they're in, because that's also sort of like a backhanded compliment. Mm-hmm. I think they're all incredibly talented, genuinely. That's why we casted them. There was something that either myself or Mally saw in each and every one of these people, and I hope that they have incredible careers going forward if they, show even the slightest bit of the same kind of talent that they did on our set. They were amazing, but they were also good people. And that's something that is also important to me. Might not be important to everybody. Now, I don't know how Robert Downey Jr. is on a set. If he was an asshole, I'd still work with him because he's Robert Downey Jr. But I can't say the same about everybody. I'd rather work with an underdog over a genius who's a piece of shit. Right?
Right.
Like, that's just me. Though comments like that don't faze me because I know how talented all of them are. When I get comments about like the filmmaking, like, oh, the white balance was bad. Well, I have a different opinion. Again, we have a different opinion. You actually made the same comment about one of my films. You're like, did you white balance his camera? Like, that was a choice.
Right.
That was a choice I made. But you did. You said that. And I was like, no, I did that on purpose. You're like, oh, that feels amateurish to me.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, tell me how you really feel. But you did, like, it's different. It's subjective. And it's funny. Mally's mom actually said the same thing to her. There's a scene, not to give away spoilers, because obviously I want people to watch the Alpines. But there's a scene like in a bedroom later in the film between her character and one of the other characters. And Mally showed her mom. She's like, "What is Dante doing? You look like you have jaundice." That's what she said to me. And I'm like, well, she didn't say it to me. She said it to Mally, and then Mally said it to me. I'm like, I like that look. She's like, I don't want to look like I have jaundice. I'm like, Mally, I'm not changing it. I don't like red skin tones. And I kept it.
Yeah,
so
it's
I'm going to defend that particular choice for Toolbox.
And that is what I'm talking about with hearing the different opinions, but being affirmed in your choices. Then you know what you're solid about. And I'd like to speak a little bit more on that when I talk a little bit about Madison Baker was here. But I also want to say that you're always going to be at a disadvantage when you're making an independent film, particularly a feature film, where you're asking people to spend 80 minutes or 2 hours of their time to watch your film that is made for, it's not a Hollywood blockbuster by any means, and it's probably someone who's in the beginning stages of a potential career, so not everything's going to go perfect, and you're asking Joe Public. You're hanging your movie poster up next to the summer blockbuster of the year, and you're asking Joe Public to watch these movies. And when they see yours, it's noticeably going to be less quality than the latest big blockbuster franchise or, plenty of Hollywood movies that aren't big blockbusters but are gorgeous and high quality. It is going to be less than that. It doesn't always have to be, but the odds are Joe Public's going to see those movies and go, well, that's not a very good movie because it, for whatever reason doesn't aesthetically hold up, or, maybe your story structure, unbeknownst to Joe Public, is not quite great or anything. So you're always going to take those risks. You're always going to get somebody who doesn't like your film. There's, plenty of big blockbusters that people don't like. So you're just always putting yourself up for criticism. You have to know that bad reviews and negativity is going to come back at you, but you gotta be a duck. Let the water flow off your back. Take the things that might make you better and ignore the things that you don't agree with. And that's fine. That's totally fine. Now, Dante, before I move on and talk about Madison Baker was here, can you tell the good people who are still sticking with us and haven't seen the Alpines yet, shame on you, where are all the places they can see the Alpines these days?
I will absolutely do that. But before I tell you where you can see the movie, I want to read one more review.
Oh, great. Okay.
Just in case you're deciding, do I watch this movie? Do I not watch this movie?
Okay.
Keep this review in mind.
Okay.
Before you decide if you're feeling a horror movie that's not a horror movie. This is a review by a Brandy Stoddard. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. When the opening scene is some sad fuck fumbling his way through a therapy session, I know this ain't a horror movie. Take Brandy's advice before you decide to watch this if you're in the mood for a horror film. You will be disappointed. But if you're in the mood for like a good movie, you know, like something that's decent and kind of interesting, I'm going to invite you to believe in, where are we? Movie Guy 1313's opinion. Pleasantly surprised. It's a familiar model, but I enjoyed the relatively novel take. Think like Movie Guy 1313. Unless you want to watch a horror movie, you will not enjoy my movie wholeheartedly. I don't even know where you can find it anymore. It's on most platforms. I believe we're still only in North America, unless you illegally download us. Don't be that guy, but if you are, at the very least, leave us a good review. Unless you don't want to do that. You know, I don't want you to lie. If you hate it, you hate it. That's okay too.
Yeah.
We're on Amazon, Tubi, Apple TV, the Microsoft Store, Vimeo, Vudu, among others. I definitely missed one or two. I like really don't know anymore. The Google Store, we're on the Google Store. We're around. Just search the Alpines, Dante Aubain, or you can also search Mally Corrigan. She's a writer, producer, fucking phenomenal upcoming talent, amazing woman. Yes, the movie was written by a woman.
Fair to say we're fans of Mally Corrigan.
A hardcore feminist. Think about that, people.
That's okay. I like her
again,
anyway.
Before you criticize, I know we love. No, that wasn't a negative. I wasn't saying feminism is a bad thing. What are you doing, Matt?
I was.
Different opinions.
I mean,
we're not hating each other over it.
That requires more elaboration, but I was just trying to be a smartass.
But yeah, give it a go. Keep her in mind, and before you criticize the mental health aspects of the film, just remember, mental illness is different for everyone. Don't be that guy.
Very fair. So lastly here, I want to say a few things about my feature film. Madison Baker was here, which you can now see on Amazon Prime Video. And there will be a link to that in the description if anybody wants to go see it. And feel free to write any sort of review you'd like at Amazon. Just make sure you do it. So in my film, we're talking about film inspiration, but Madison Baker was kind of inspired by the films I loved when I was younger and the friendships in those films, such as Goonies and Stand By Me. Those are films that, you know, of course, pretty much everybody loves those films. That's easy. But it was Madison Baker was here really inspired by the friendships I had in my teen years. There was a kind of a core 4-person group. Of course, there was more people involved, and I'd love to, you know, talk about all of my friends when I was that age. But there was kind of this core 4-person group, and if we were going to stay the night for a birthday, you know, it was going to be at one of our houses and probably going to be the 4 of us. That kind of a friendship, that quartet. And I wanted to make a film that was about the impact of friendship that you don't even really realize is going on, but the influence that your friends have on you when you're caught up in your own mess, and how, you know, friends just... I'm going to cut that. 3, 2, 1. But this film was made with all females. Well, not all females, but the main 4 people in the cast are a group of 4 female friends. And I had an advantage working with these young ladies because they all went to the same school. not during the time we were filming, but they all came from the same school, which is how I met them. I was doing contract work for this school and met them through their various drama productions and stuff, and had worked with a few of them prior to making Madison Baker was here. So they kind of already knew each other, kind of already had this friendship going, which is, hey, casting is directing. If you want people to appear as friends on screen, cast friends. And that was kind of my approach there. But this is a movie made with practically no budget. I think I probably spent about, if you don't count gear I already owned and stuff like that, but I probably spent about $5,000 in...
the gear you already owned counts.
What's that?
The gear you owned counts. Well, you bought it for these reasons. Well, at least like 10% of it.
The gear was owned because, I work professionally to do projects and things like that. So I just, I kind of already owned it, but it's, I took at the start of production to the end of production, probably about $5,000 out of my own pocket to make this film. Which is nothing. These are considered no-budget films, by the way. For anybody who cares about the intricacies of tiers in production, these are all considered no-budget. Low budget's like, you got to be six figures, I think, to even be low budget. Right. That rings true. Yeah. Yeah. So this is a story about a girl who's leaving town. Her family is moving. Her father gets a new job, and this is the girl's last night together. And they sneak out, and then eventually it turns into a mission. But it's not even, spoiler alert. It's not even about the thing that they're doing or where they're going, where they're trying to go. It's about the conversations that happen throughout, and then who they are in the morning after this night out. And that's really all the film's about. It's very simple. It's not edgy by any means. There's a little bit of swearing. There is some underage drinking. But it is in no way something that isn't family friendly or anything like that. So it's a very safe, easy to digest type of film that anybody can watch. But there are parts of it that just for me in my head completely fall apart because, again, all the responsibilities on the director. There were things I was not prepared for. I went into this wanting to shoot it a very specific way, but unfortunately, one of my cast members was very much not off book. And it created a problem in these wides and oneers that I wanted to shoot it in and had to shoot a shit ton of coverage to compensate for that. So there's way more edits than I initially intended, blah, blah, blah. We shot at night, mostly out on the town in very uncontrollable situations. These are the dangers I put us in. And these are pitfalls that if you're, understaffed as we were, it was me and my eldest son as pretty much my production assistant and my boom operator. And we did the best we could. We put it out. It is nowhere near perfect. I'm extraordinarily proud of it. I'm extraordinarily proud of the girls who star in the film. And I'm so happy to have made the film, and I never made it to become a big director or make a ton of money. I made this film so that I could make a feature film, learn from that experience from start to finish of writing it, pre-producing, line producing, going into production, going into post, actually having score recorded and original songs recorded for the film and putting it out there in the world to watch. I wanted to go through that entire experience so that I could learn things I would otherwise not learn having done that myself. And then it's out there. So I think it's a decent 80 minutes. But as I mentioned earlier in this podcast, my huge problem as a filmmaker that I perceive is that my opening act is extraordinarily long, as it is in this case. This film doesn't really get going until the middle of the second act almost. And that's when you're going in the right direction. So when this film, for me, hits its sweet spot, I'm asking an audience to be like 45 minutes into it at that point. And that's something you cannot do to an audience.
Not nowadays, at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very...
And I wanted this. No. This film is exactly what I wanted it to be. And then I'm able to look back at it and go, okay, so I would do this different. I would do this different. I would make this a better film. If I shot it again today, I would do this different. And I learned. But it's everything I set out for it to be. And I'm very, very proud of that. Now, as I mentioned, I haven't received like a lot of bad reviews or bad feedback. That's actually been the opposite. Especially in person, of course. I've received emails and messages and things like that from people who have said just extraordinarily nice things about the film. And, I kind of set that up, so you're not going to want to say anything bad about the kids, right? So don't bad talk the movie.
Nobody wants to talk shit about kids.
Right. But they are wonderful girls, just very important people to me. And I think they did an amazing job. They did this all essentially for free, and most of them were busy with other things. This was, a big giant black hole in their summer, and it was, it was taxing on them. These are kids who are used to theater. They were not used to film production, and we were taking them out at night during the summer when they already had a full day. And, I maybe got about 90 minutes of good acting out of them until they'd start kind of losing the momentum. So it was a tough production in that sense. But
they were, everybody really handled them, like held their own. I remember when I got a chance to watch it, probably about a year ago now. I was the actress who played Madison Baker,
Madeline Lingle,
something. She reminded me of like a lot of a young like Millie Bobby Brown.
Exactly. Yeah.
I thought she was really great. I was also like a big fan of. I think did she co-write this with you? Izzy something?
Izzy Weaver. Co-writing is not actually the correct term, but I did lean on her for several parts of some of the dialogue initially in the initial write. So I do credit her because there are things in there that were her ideas that she helped me with, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, she was a big standout for me. She's if I remember correctly, she gets a little bit tipsy.
Yep.
Is that her?
Yes.
Yep.
That is Izzy Weaver.
All right, so I do remember correctly. She was a big standout for me. I really loved the young actress who played Madison Baker, and that's really hard to come by. Kid actors who aren't like necessarily in Hollywood that are good,
right?
And I think for the budget that you had for what you were able to do, you assembled a really cute cast, and they all played very well together. And again, listeners, I'm going to remind you, in case you didn't already get this, does Matt sound like anyone that you know, the way that he made that movie? He sounds like one of you. One of you. Indie filmmakers. How much did you make this feature-length film for? What was that number?
Me? 5,000?
Wow. How does that compare to a 30-minute short film made for $1,000?
Well,
sounds like your people.
Well, and I'm very much thankful to this cast. They are extraordinarily talented people and just hard-working individuals who, thankfully, we had years of relationship prior to production. So I trusted them implicitly. They could trust me. We had home field advantage. We shot in our own town. We used a couple of our own houses. Again, they were familiar with each other. I would purposely bring them in, prior to production, like an hour before we really needed them, so that they could hang out, catch up, kind of get into friendship modes. But I knew when we did our table reads, and I wrote these parts with these people in mind, and it was actually cast years before we started. So I had a pretty good idea of how they were going to portray these characters. But when we did our table read, I was so blown away. Like I got so internally, I did try not to show this, but I got so emotional because I was so proud of these kids, well, these young ladies, and what they were bringing, and in their A game that they were bringing. And like you mentioned, specifically with Madeline Lingle and Izzy Weaver, these are two incredibly talented individuals who brought way more to their characters than I was able to write. And, so my film, any credit,
that's the dream,
any credit,
you know?
yeah, any credit that it has, when people say, "Oh, I just love it," I know what everyone's really talking about is they love these girls and these characters that they played. And so I never sit back and I'm like, I made this movie that everyone loves. I'm thinking, I showed you these people that I really like, and of course you like them. It has nothing to do with my story or my cinematography or anything like that. It's you can't help but like these kids. So that's my secret weapon. It's these girls. Now, thankfully, the reviews I've seen are pretty good, but you showed me this. I never thought about checking Letterboxd, and that's Letterboxd, BOXD.com, where they've got film reviews on here, and there's like 3 of Madison Baker Was Here, because my film's not. It's not.
And these are the film people. Like, these are the film aficionados, the young sort of like not official film critics, like the people that are film lovers, not just avid moviegoers. I mean, who else is going to take time out of their day to set up a Letterboxd account to blog about the movies that they're watching all year? People that love movies. Well, that's where all the reviews were coming from of the Alpines. The ones that hated it, movie lovers. So,
well, and this is not much of a scathing review,
rough.
But I'm just going to read one that's here. And it's by Joseph. And he says, "I'm sure everyone worked really hard on this and had fun working on it, but this is pretty bad." And you know what? I love that, because I'm like, man, you don't know the half of it. I bet you don't know how bad it is. When you ask me, you want to hear me rip my film? I'll rip it up and down for another hour. But, okay, so someone didn't like the film. That's totally fine. This film isn't made for everyone. I was inspired by John Hughes, and I absolutely love his run of movies with young people in that world, and that's the world I wanted to play in. And there's some homages to the Goonies, and very specifically Stand By Me. There are some direct things that are, I love Stand By Me. Here's this scene. It's clearly inspired by Stand By Me, because there is a scene in Madison Baker Was Here where 2 of the main characters are having a very heartfelt conversation.
On the bridge.
Yep. On the bridge.
Yep, on the bridge. Is that the one?
And that is
I know
a direct, I don't know if reference is the right word, but a direct reference to Chris and Gordy talking at night in Stand By Me, where you get the story that Chris is telling and what's upset him so much at the time. And it is a cathartic film for me, Madison Baker Was Here, because the character who's telling that story on the bridge in my film, the Cassie Gordon character played by J.C. Shopper, that person is giving my backstory, is exercising a demon of mine, and something that I don't ever really talk about, but something that impacted me so much as a child that it was difficult for me to process then. And, for 30 years later to look back and go, wow, that really had a huge impact on me. That stunted my growth at 11. And is part of the reason why I'm in an office full of Transformers and Marvel characters and things like that, because my childhood ended abruptly at 11. And then I never really got to go back to that point. And like it's almost as like the way I was at 11 is something I'm always trying to go back to. The 10 minutes before this event happened in my life is something I'm striving to go back to. So, you know, and while I'm on the couch, let me just tell you about more of my inner feelings. But that was the point of this movie. I was expressing my love for my friends, who one of the core 4 of my friends passed away a couple months before we started production. Unexpectedly passed away. And so I was having to bury my friend and then go into production of this film, which he was very much an inspiration for. And he never got to see this. He never saw anything about it because I kept it. No one saw the script or anything. I wanted to show this movie to my friends when it was done. So he didn't even know that was coming. So, you know, it's a very personal film for me. And then I just had such a blast working with these girls and the other people who are in the film. There's some friends of mine. So, you know, I only read one bad review, but what I really want to focus on is that the things that are bad in Madison Baker, or perceived as bad, are my responsibility. And if anybody calls them out, I take responsibility. And in starting Madison Baker Was Here, once I had the screenplay done and went through a few versions for myself, I then put it out to professional readers. And I will say screenplayreaders.com was very helpful. And Terri Zinner, who is at afilmwriter.com, also was very helpful in giving me proper feedback on my story so that I could either make adjustments or not make adjustments. And one of the things Screenplay Reader told me was that, you know, the first act, too long. Takes too long to get going, essentially. And at the time, I'm like, that's probably true, but I'm gonna stick to my plan. And then they gave me some other notes that I was like, okay, great. Let me change that. Let me do this. Super helpful. And that's an example of someone who objectively watched it, gave me feedback, and I went, okay, that's probably true, but I'm gonna stick to my guns. I don't agree with this, and I don't have a strong opinion, so if they think that would be better, let me change it. That makes more sense. And I'm just open to that stuff. Now, there was an associate of mine at the time who I had asked to kind of format the screenplay better in final draft, because I think I knocked out the first one. First draft might have happened, or the first few drafts might have happened in it was Slugline. I used Celtics, then I went to Slugline, and then I was asking this individual, can you put this in final draft and then kind of format it properly? Well, this person, who is also a brilliant writer, took the screenplay and then kind of did a rewrite of it instead of actually formatting the screenplay. And this rewrite, ultimately, I was not a fan of. However, this rewrite gave me an opportunity to see it through his eyes as someone who is, you don't have all the inside information. You don't know how personal it is. You don't really understand the tone I'm going for, or anything like that. So, and that's information your audience doesn't have. So if you're not conveying that in your screenplay or in your performances, don't expect the audience to know all your backstory and all of that. But this person rewrote the script, and not entirely, but made some changes here and there. And there were things that I thought, oh, that's perfect. There were things that were holes where I went, oh my God, that was a stand-in line, and I never bothered to change it, and he just caught it and made it better. Thank you. There were things he put in there that made me laugh out loud when I read it, and I'm like, okay, awesome, that's going in. And then there were things where I went, no, that's completely off the tone of what I'm looking for. That's not what I want to do. I don't want the girls saying this or doing this or expressing this. Or, I don't feel the audience needs this information to connect these dots. So there were things I disagreed with. There were things I liked very much and incorporated. And there were things that I went, okay, I see what you're saying, but I'm affirmed in what I already have. I'm sticking with that. And it's open. Now, this person ultimately, well, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole with that. But ultimately, this person wasn't a fan of I guess my direction of not wanting to do everything he did, I guess. I can't speak for him. But it gave me a chance to embrace the brilliant things he brought in and be more confident about what I believed in my script. And so what I'm trying to say is everyone should be submitting their scripts to not your friends or your mom. They don't want to read your script. They don't know anything about movies. Put them out to professional readers like Terri Zinner at afilmwriter.com or Screenplay Readers, or there's other options out there. Have people read your screenplay, get feedback, rework your script, tighten it up before you go into production. And I don't talk about that enough at IndieEye. So that's something I would always recommend people do. And now that I see my film, and I see how long it takes to actually get going, to get where I want it to be, it took too long, takes too long. So I'm not going to make that mistake again. And all the problems I have with the cinematography in it, I know how to correct that now going forward. I know how to do things a little bit better than how I did it for Madison Baker Was Here. And that's the point of filmmaking. Doing a thing, making mistakes, putting it out there, letting it live and die the way it is, and then going on and doing your thing. Don't let it live in limbo in post-production and then no one ever sees it. Do it, get it out there, do the best you can, and get it out there. Live with the feedback, get better. You're already better once you're done shooting anything because you've learned so much through the process. But your next film's going to be better. So just keep making films. And I feel bad because I only read the one bad review of mine, but everyone's invited to go watch Madison Baker Was Here and shit on it. Well, and you had wider distribution. You had a much bigger audience than Madison Baker Was Here. My whole business plan for Madison Baker Was Here went to hell when COVID started because we shot the summer before COVID. And once COVID happened, and I was in the middle of post-production in March of 2020 and everything shut down, film festivals closed up, and my plan was to be in festivals that summer and to run my business plan throughout the year. And so I was like, I don't know what to do with this movie. And I went on to do other work for 6 months until a festival was like, hey, I know you made this movie. We want to have it. And so I had to go and finish it and move forward there. But so just in the end, once it was done and getting out there, I just wanted it to be out. I didn't want to have it to myself anymore. I wanted to give it to the world. I wanted the girls to be able to see it and the families involved to be able to see it. And it just, here's what it is. It is what it is. Love it, hate it, watch it. And I'm already working on the next thing. So it doesn't really matter. But I'm so proud of it. And it helped me become a better filmmaker. So just embrace the suck, people. My film's not perfect. Dante's his film isn't perfect. They don't need to be. And other people's opinions, they're helpful when they're helpful, but they ultimately don't matter. And just use them to your advantage and get better.
Moral of the story, go watch Madison Baker.
Yes.
And shit on it enough that it has just as many bad reviews as the Alpines.
Yeah, I don't have enough bad reviews. Well, I don't have enough reviews.
You're lucky.
See, that's the cool thing, though. Your movie has been watched way more than mine. And I think
I was kidding. Please don't shit on his movie.
Well, say anything you want
unless you hate it. I mean, if you do, you do you. You got your opinion.
I certainly love it, but like any honest filmmaker, you're going to watch your thing back and, the parts where are really troublesome. And it could be a shot that wasn't the way you wanted it to be, but nobody else notices because nobody cares. But I do. So much of the conception of Madison Baker Was Here was in oneers and wides. And I couldn't because of, someone being not off book. So it just wasn't possible. And it
also, they're kids. They're
exactly.
They're a little more unpredictable. And I still again. Do I think you made a perfect film? No.
What?
I was honest with you about the things that I really liked and really did not like. But you're working with kid actors who really held their own together.
Yeah.
With the two that I named being the standouts for me. Mm-hmm. But I could not have done that. And that's something that like I really admire and respect. The fact that you were able to make this film with kid actors. I don't know if it's just because I don't like kids. But I don't know if I would have had the patience, knowing some of the behind the scenes things that you've shared with me. I don't know if I could have done that same job because, knowing what, some of those struggles that you guys faced, I really commend you for that. And
Thank you.
Again, just the sheer fact that they are kids, the entirety of your film, almost every scene, most shots are the core 4 children in the cast.
Right.
And they were you 15, 16-ish, right? They weren't seniors. They're they're kids in high school spending their summer with you making a movie. And I thought what you guys were able to accomplish was tremendous. And
Thank you.
that's just like what you said, I'm not comparing your film to Toolbox. I'm just saying how you said it to them. The fact that they made this film, good or bad, whether people like it or not, it is an accomplishment. And then you're just at your next step. You've made your first finished cut. In their case, hopefully their first cut. Mm-hmm. And now it's a matter of learning and growing and screening it and seeing what works and what doesn't. And in their case, they're hurting themselves if they're not going to accept negative feedback. And I have not been shy this whole time, neither of you. I did not like the movie. I was not kind. And because of the email exchanges and the responses to a bad review, it's led me, and I think you as well, to be a little more candid, because it's we're human beings. There was some pretty hefty, hilarious sarcasm in those email responses. I respected that a ton.
I am known for that.
You're not going to learn, but people need that, whether they want to admit it or not. My worst reviews, full disclosure, when I got that feedback email from for Polaroid, I wasn't thrilled the first time that I read the email. I was like, fuck.
Sure.
I was pissed. I was like, man, I worked fucking hard on this thing. And I don't see it. I don't see that. Whatever. You're never gonna, I'm not a perfect human being, and I'm sure you're not either. You might have felt that way sometimes.
Sure.
It took me an hour to think about it and go, I can be mad and say, fuck this guy, there's nothing wrong with my film. Or I could look at it one more time and recognize, yeah, there are problems. And he was one of... I think you did tell me even that it was a little long. I'm not positive, but I know at the very least, the majority of the people that I showed the first couple of edits to, it was long. It was a little draggy. It was slow. I was getting a lot of the same comments, and maybe I didn't want to believe it when I first heard them. Maybe there was a part of me that thought that, but I needed that assurance. I needed to know, if no one else feels that way, because I'm not surrounded by yes men. My dad is so honest about, he didn't like my movie. He's not shy about it. He did not like it. And I'm not talking about the short film. I'm talking about the feature that just got distribution, and it's oh wow, I'm so proud of my son.
Right.
Nah, I mean, he's proud of me, but he didn't like my movie.
Sure.
That's my dad. I'm not surrounded by yes men, and I could not be more grateful for it, because they're honest. These are the people that have helped me grow as a filmmaker by being real with me. And maybe this particular filmmaker did not ask for that. I don't think that, again, I'm not a part of the rest of the IndieEye process. I don't really see what the pages look like where they submit the reviews. I just get the email. You've got one. Give it a watch. Write a review. But I don't think that you guys have ever given an indication that, hey, send me money and I'll say nice things about your movie.
Oh, yeah. No, can't do it.
I don't think you've done that. And maybe they just weren't prepared for someone to dislike their movie. Like they said, we're your people and you're not our people. I've said it a number of times already during this podcast. That's a little horse shit. Now I'm going to say it in the most blunt way possible. It's horse shit. They are exactly your people. They are the people that you really should be listening to because they are your people.
Thank you, Dante.
And of course, and again, I recognize that it could sound biased, but it's not. I've never met Matt. Just for the viewers, we talk on the phone a lot.
It's weird. It doesn't feel
a lot
like
of the
that.
same kind of movies and shit. But I know it's weird. But no, West Coast, East Coast. It's what it is. But hey, eventually we're gonna meet soon.
Yes.
But as far as this podcast, we have yet to meet. So it's not like we're like old pals that are just feeding you guys lines of horse shit. We're just real human beings that love movies and are being as honest with you as we can be because we're hoping that you learn and you grow. And like I said earlier, and this extends to the creators of Toolbox as well. Fix, I don't want to say fix. That's a harsh term because it's still just my opinion. If you were to make some changes to your film and you were like, hey, I made some adjustments. I'd love for you to watch this. No, you're not going to get your. And I know I'm putting words in Matt's mouth, but I'm pretty sure that I'm right here. You're not going to just all of a sudden get reselected for the festival. That's kind of gone and past. But hey, you make some changes to your film and you say, I'd like you to reconsider your review, and you send me a link. Yeah, I'll watch it for a third time, and for free, mind you. I'm not a piece of shit that just wrote a bunch of shit and didn't watch your movie, pal. That's the bluntest I'm going to be. That's the New Yorker in me coming out right now. You paid for my time. You got it. And I wanted to like your movie. I want to like every submission that I get.
Right.
Because that's the perfect world. That's the dream.
And it's our time. We want to enjoy it.
To see these... Yeah, and not only that, just to be able to see and to know, there are other indie filmmakers just like me and you that are out there doing this, and it's like, wow, that's awesome. Like, again, this is the only name that's coming to mind. There are others, I swear. But, in Calvin Shepard's case, I watched his film and I was a fan. Didn't love every aspect of it, but I was a fan. I wanted to follow him on Instagram because I wanted to make sure that I kept this guy in the back of my head and I could keep in the know on the projects he's working on because he's a filmmaker that I'm looking out for. I want to see what he's got going on next. And I want that for every filmmaker that submits a review and that I get the pleasure of being probably one of the first people to watch it. That's a privilege. It's a big deal when I share my stuff with people and I'm like, hey, can you watch this? Tell me what you think. So I get it. Mm-hmm. It's taxing. It's also nerve-wracking. But you can't tell everyone that hates your movie to go fuck themselves. Whether you say it nicely or you say, what's up with that? In Cliff's case for, all you old folks out there that like Cheers and young folks, I'm young and I love Cheers too. And in his case, did he say, go fuck yourself? No, he didn't say that in the email, but he did. He did. Not in the first one, but the second and the third one, when he just disregarded everything that Matt said. He ignored the review and he focused on one thing. He wanted a yes man. He thought he was paying money for a good review, and that's not the case anywhere you go. You're paying for an opinion. You're paying for a yes, a no, a love, or a hate. Unfortunately, you got a review closer to hate.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I want you to just stop making movies.
Exactly.
Make something better. Fix your film if you stand by it and if you love it. And succeed, proceed, move forward, learn, grow, and just keep doing it. That's, Matt said it before, just keep doing it. So you could still hate our opinions and say, we don't know what the fuck we're talking about. But if 10 other people say the same thing, what's that statement? It looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's a fucking duck.
Right. Well, that's why I invite, these people specifically to submit to other places for written reviews and see if that feedback rings true to what we've said here. And I can empathize with the filmmakers of Toolbox, and I can put myself in their shoes and, understand that perhaps they were a little confused about, a review saying bad things, but they were an official selection for a festival and not being able to differentiate between those two things. I hope we've cleared those things up. But we make the podcast for a reason, not this one, but the regular monthly one. And there is feedback in that podcast for all filmmakers. And some of that applies to what could have made Toolbox better. So ultimately, I hope filmmakers take away that you shouldn't be arguing with those who review your film. I understand asking questions, and I know that the filmmakers of Toolbox wanted some clarification. But don't let bad reviews get to you. And again, if you're explaining, you're losing. So here's a look inside of how things can go if you're not willing to accept things that you don't particularly agree with. And when you're submitting to IndieEye, you've got a whole big look behind the curtain now of how that process might go, who's involved, and what goes on with watching the reviews. I hope this is helpful to anybody interested in submitting or anybody who has submitted in the past. We encourage you all to listen to IndieEye Film Awards and go to IndieEyeFilmAwards.com or find us on Film Freeway and submit a project of yours for our monthly competition and be involved in the process. We try to build a community of filmmakers who can reach out to each other, just like Dante did with Calvin, and have a virtual green room of a film festival where you can mingle and talk to people. Where we're coming out of this time where things were all closed down. So embrace IndieEye, and we are here for you, and connect with others that have their films involved. That was shit, but I'm keeping it because I'm exhausted. We just gave you over 4 hours of our time, and I don't want to hear anybody else say, I'm just not getting that feeling that you're for the indie filmmaker. Anything?
100%.
Anything you want to close with?
If you're with me, readers, or listeners, the fuck, readers. If you're still here, and you made it to the end, you didn't scroll, you didn't do shit, you listened from start to finish, I invite you to DM myself or Matt on IndieEye, and I'm speaking for him right now, I'm so sorry. He's going to give you a free review and a free submission. If you can genuinely say you listened to this whole thing, and I'm going to quiz you. Okay. I will do that, and I bet he'll do it too. Is that okay? Is that okay to say that?
We'll say this. If you DM... Dante, what's your Instagram handle?
That's a great question. I think it's just my name. I'm really bad at Instagram. I'm really bad at just social media in general. It takes me time, but I answer people. It's just my name, Dante, DANTE _ Aubain, AUBAIN. It's the best way to contact me, and you can DM me anytime. It just might take me some time to get back to you, but I will get back to you.
All right, so if you DM Dante, or you DM me at IndieEye Film Awards on Instagram, or you email me at hello@IndieEyeFilmAwards.com and say, I listened to the entire Bad Review podcast, I deserve this, I will send you a personal 75% off discount code that you'll be able to use for at some point that you need to use it in the future. That's if you listen to the whole thing. So DM us on Instagram, email me, and You earned that.
You did.
All right.
We're
getting out of
here. This was
here.
a fun conversation, but it's still basically just drunk talk at this point.
But yeah, pretty much. Dante, thank you for your time. Thank you for everything you've done for us at IndieEye. We appreciate you reaching out and offering to take this burden off of our plate. And for
I appreciate you guys.
And for just
you're the real heroes.
Yeah, well, we couldn't be here without other indie filmmakers propping this whole thing up. So good to all you filmmakers out there who agree with us or don't agree with us, but thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to this bonus episode of the IndieEye Film Awards podcast.